Good morning. Welcome to the December 15th meeting of the Blue Earth County Board of Commissioners. We are going to start with our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Everybody's looking so Christmassy this morning.
You
I
betcha.
wonder why that is, Mr.
Oh, I
Chair.
tell you what, good leadership, I think. The agenda, Bob?
Mr. Chair, there are no changes to the agenda today.
I'll move the agenda.
Purvis seconds.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Jesse, could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Purvis,
Aye.
Commissioner People,
Aye.
Commissioner Stuenberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer,
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder.
You can catch it either, Jesse. And we're going to start with Mr. Mike Mauer, from the
morning, Mike.
Blue Earth County Sheriff's Department.
Morning, Mike.
Morning.
Morning, Mike.
We've got a couple of pieces of that, or several pieces of information we want to run by you. I'm going to just do a couple, and then I'm going to leave the drone for Captain Barta. He's taken a large role in that drone and the drone operations and the policies and stuff, so I'm going to let him try to explain that. The first one I have is just to get the approval for the Violent Crime Enforcement Team grant in the amount of $152,000, and then we found out in December 31st there was some extra money, so we got $162,000. This is for really for the drug task force that we have locally, and it covers salaries for agents throughout the community for multiple different agents.
Purvis moves approval.
People seconds?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just a question, just so I'm clear. So we actually got over $300,000 for the year?
Nope, we had $162,000 for 2021. Or, no, I'm sorry, the original term of the grant was for 152, and then we got 162,000. That puts us through 2021. So we had 152 in 2020, and then we'll get 162 in 2021.
Okay, I was just a little confused. so
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
Well, they were really heroes down in Albert Lee. And they did the SWAT team and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
That's the
That's
TAC
different.
team.
That's a TAC
team.
team.
This is a drug task force.
This is the drug task force.
So this is the multi-agency group that we've had in place for years with Mankato, our agency, Nicollet County, Martin County, and Watonwan County. Did I miss anyone, Pat? It's a multi-regional group that works together in conjunction, and we serve as a drug task force for those.
And it's so well needed throughout the region.
I'm sorry.
It's so well needed throughout the region.
They do a lot of other things. If we have a real serious violent crime, something like that, we can use our agents to help with some of that. They'll pick up some of the investigative pieces, so it's really nice to have in place.
Any other discussion? Jesse, could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Purvis.
Aye.
Commissioner People,
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer,
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder,
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye. Go ahead, Mike.
The next one we have is we're just going to raise our off-duty rate from $70 an hour to $75 an hour. If there is a little bit of question on what some of our off-duty reimbursement is for, is Mayo Clinic or Mayo of Mankato Transport. Sometimes we have to do mental health transports for the hospital. They don't have enough staff to do it, so they call us to do it, and then they reimburse us. And sometimes on Black Friday, the stores in Mankato can't cover all of the different extra security positions, so then they farm them out to us and say, can you help out and cover these? And this is the rate that we charge for doing them.
And this rate hasn't been raised for 4 years?
Correct.
Brunder will move approval.
People second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Jesse, could you call the roll?
Commissioner Purvis.
Aye.
Commissioner People,
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer,
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder,
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I'll
Mike.
give it to
Mike,
Mike.
see you. Have a good Christmas.
Yes.
Yes.
Happy holidays.
Hello, everyone.
Morning,
Hi,
Paul.
Paul?
Good morning.
Just wanted to, I guess, bring to the board's attention statutory or law changes that affect government use of drones, UAS, or unmanned aerial systems as they're referred to. And essentially, the legislative or law changes that had happened require new programs from law enforcement or government agencies to go for public review and public comment for developing the policies. We've had a system in place with our agency since 2019. We've deployed it several times. We've had a lot of good successes with it. It's been a very beneficial tool. But in order for us to get in compliance with the statutory requirements, we feel it's necessary to potentially have the board review this in order to allow public comment and posting of our policy for any input from the public, just to make sure we're in compliance with the statute.
Do you need a motion on setting the date?
Yes.
I'll move that.
Purvis seconds.
Got a motion and a second, any discussion? What do you think you're gonna hear? I mean, obviously with public discussion, it could be anything,
Yeah.
from the negative to the positive and somewhere in between. But by law, we really don't need to do this, do we? Because we've already had one and we're working it.
That's a great question, Commissioner, and my answer to you is I don't know, because we've gotten different guidance when we've asked that very question. And so our position has been, if we're not getting a great answer one way or another, we'll comply with the public opinion, open it up for comment, and that way we feel that we're absolutely in compliance, so rather than going the other direction.
And I absolutely agree with you. I think it's a great idea to do this, but it looks like we're going over and above what's needed, and I think that only shows what Blue Earth County and what our Sheriff's Department does.
Thank you. And with respect to the comments we'll get, I don't really know. I will say that we've not had any negative outreach from the public to this point. We've not made it a secret that we have this capability. And frankly, I think we can bring in factual information and cases where we've utilized it to benefit search and rescue and other operations to kind of show that it's not an overarching attempt at government to spy on people or do anything other than help. So pretty comfortable with our position and our uses to this point with it.
Well, not only has it been used with the Sheriff's Department, but our Public Works has used the same drone to help with our ditch sightings and other things across the county. So it's been used for roads and bridges and obviously its main focus is the Sheriff's Department, but this isn't something that's sitting idle.
No, that's a very good point. Yeah, so the partnership that we've had with taxpayer services and ditch utilization and stuff has benefited not only the county as a whole because it's helped our staff for training purposes and also saved some contract time or expense for having that service provided by an outside vendor. So,
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
we had a very nice overview of one of our county roads with your staff that flew our county road that we did the other day for
That's
our
right.
virtual road tour. So thank you for that.
great. Yeah.
I have a question and then a comment, Mr. Chair. So is this the public comment only for the Sheriff's Department, or is it for any use of an UAV?
It's for government use, so anytime
Okay.
government use would be involved in it. And the interesting thing is the statute does delineate and talk specifically about law enforcement,
Okay.
but then there is also references to government use of UAS. So I would say it kind of applies to both.
I was
Okay,
just
good.
kind of curious. I'm a big believer in drones. I just think
Oh, yeah.
it's a safety issue in many ways, and it gives you a view that you can't get being on the ground. It was interesting. I don't know if I was watching TV, and Chula Vista, California, was talking about how they're sending it out as a first responder, as police can then make their way to it, but the drone can get there right away. And someone had robbed a place or shot somebody, I don't remember which one, and I think there was a shooting involved. And they could track that guy running away and where he went that the police would not have been able to do. So, I mean, I think there's some real safety issues here for our staff and everyone else. So I'm excited about drones.
Great, thank you. Yeah, they're definitely, again, an amazing tool
Yep.
to save risk and lives, so.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Jesse, could you call a roll, please?
Commissioner Purvis.
Aye.
Commissioner People.
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer.
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder.
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good
Thanks, Paul.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Yes, Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning, George.
Morning, George.
Morning, George.
Go ahead, George.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. PC 28-20 is a request from Great River Energy. Is a request for review and approval of a request to relocate a section of station-to-station electrical transmission line. The relocation area includes portions of section 20, 21, 22, 27, and 28 of Shelby Township. Staff presented the report. Great River Energy representatives were linked to the virtual meeting. They commented on the accuracy of the report. The abandonment of the section of existing line that is being replaced and the environmental impact of the project was questioned by a neighboring landowner. Great River Energy's representatives stated that the existing line will be abandoned and indicated no objection to the inclusion of a condition requiring the action. They also commented on the environmental process and review by the Army Corps of Engineers and Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. The representatives stated that they will be discussing the Dodge Ford Bridge with State Historical Preservation Office and will keep the county informed on the wetland permit. The commission members indicated their familiarity with the project from a variance application reviewed earlier in the evening. They expressed no concern with the proposal. Following the discussion and a roll call vote, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of the request to the County Board as recommended by staff, with the added condition that the old transmission lines be removed once the new line is energized. And the board action is a resolution.
All right. This is a public hearing, and if there is anyone that's on Zoom or anyone that wishes to either speak or text their message on Zoom, please feel free to do so and state your name. Oh, I see somebody talking, but I don't hear nobody.
Do you have the remote?
Just hold on.
Oh, I bet we have to put that on Zoom. Just a moment, we're getting there, Dale. Thank you.
Technology sometimes is rough here.
Okay.
This is only my second one I've had to do for a commission.
All right, well, go ahead, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Dale Elke. I'm a senior field representative for Great River Energy. This project that you have before you today and request for approval is basically it's a project where we're looking at rebuilding an existing transmission line that is now going across the Blue Earth River in a place that erosion is quickly compromising our poles. We would ask for the approval of this so that we can remove poles out of that riverbed that are now being, like I said, jeopardized, and establish a new, better access and better corridor for this line to serve the Benco cooperative customers at their substation, the Willow Creek substation that is to the west.
All right, well, thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to comment on PC 2820 from Great River Energy?
This is Tasha Barthel. I'm the permitting representative for Great River Energy.
Yes.
We've done a lot of we've done a lot of background on this with the DNR, with the Corps of Engineers. It's been relocated twice already, the pole is in the river. And it's become more of a concern leaving it where it is. So we're working with the Corps and the DNR right now to get the permits to relocate this in a safer location for the line.
Thank you very much. And again, is there anyone else that would like to speak on PC 2820? Hearing no one else, I'll bring it back to the board.
Purvis moves approval.
Brunder will second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I just
Go ahead.
have a comment. I'm familiar with that situation, and that has been a problem area for them for a long time, so I think it's a good move.
Yep, that was echoed at the Planning and Zoning Board, so thank you, Will.
All right. Any other discussion? Jesse, could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Purvis?
Aye.
Excuse me. Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder?
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg?
Aye. And then we got PC 2920.
PC 29-20 is a request from Reynolds Excavating LLC for review and approval of an aggregate mine reclamation plan. The property is zoned agricultural and has a small area within the urban fringe overlay district of the city of Mankato. And the property is in the east half of the southwest quarter of Section 12 Judson Township and the southwest quarter of the southwest quarter of Section 7 South Bend Township. Staff presented the report. The applicant was linked into the virtual meeting and available for questions. There was no other public comment. The Planning Commission members acknowledged that it was fitting to convert the land back to an agricultural use. Following the discussion and a roll call vote, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of the request to the County Board with the findings and conditions presented by staff, and the board action is a resolution.
All right, this is a public hearing, and if there's anyone on Zoom that would wish to speak on PC 2920, go ahead and state your name and then go ahead.
Good morning. Roger Reynolds with Reynolds Excavating. We have owned and operated the Hannell Pit from, I think we bought it about 2010. And we're just moving through the phases of stuff that we've mined and I guess putting it back to farm ground.
Okay.
And, yeah, that's about it.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on PC 2920? One more time, is there anyone else that would like to speak on PC 2920? Hearing no one, I'll bring it back to the board.
Purvis moves approval.
Brunder will second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
Just a process question, Mr. Chair. Do we have to get sign off since it's in the urban fringe overlay by the city of Mankato?
We had township review,
Okay.
but there was no review by the city.
Okay. I just wondered about the process. I just wasn't
Right.
sure.
I think if this was in one of the annexation areas that we definitely would have asked for input from the city, but the location of this and just converting it from the original proposal in reclamation was to convert it to a wildlife area. And now they believe it's more suitable for agricultural land. And so we did not ask for city input.
I was just curious if that was needed. So, thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion?
No, sir.
Jesse, could you call a roll, please?
Commissioner Purvis?
Aye.
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder?
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg?
Aye. Thank you very much.
Madam Commissioner, I should add one more thing. I was not the author of that report, and so it's surely possible that the gentleman that did review that report may have reached out to the city.
Okay,
So
yeah.
I may be wrong on that answer.
I appreciate that. And I just think, going forward, we probably should.
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you, George.
Thanks, George. Have a
Thanks,
Merry
George.
Christmas.
And our next is going to be property and environmental resources with Mike Stahlberger and Mark Vanderfield.
Good morning, Mark.
morning.
Good morning, Mike.
Morning,
Morning,
gentlemen.
man.
Morning, everyone. I'm sort of getting over a cold here, so hopefully you can hear me well.
All
Thanks
right.
for having me. I'll cover the first number of 3 items there on the list, beginning with the assessment changes. This follows the same format as we've had in previous years. If you recall, the assessor is responsible for making aware, the county board aware of the assessment, changes to the assessment. In this case, from the conclusion of the County Board of Appeal and Equalization that occurred in June up until the end of November. Most of the changes on the format that you see there are homestead changes, as well as those applicants that were approved for special programs such as disabled vets exclusion and those kind of things. So any questions on any of those? Otherwise, I would request that the board accept the minutes and don't need a motion to approve the changes because they're already made and approved through the assessor. But we do need to make this a part of the official record by accepting them as into the minutes.
I'll move,
Brenda
go ahead.
Brenda would move approval of accepting them into the minutes.
I'll second it, and I have a question.
Yep.
Would
Okay.
you,
Go ahead.
would you just explain what the disabled vets, Class 1B, the different classifications are, just so
Sure.
people know?
Yep,
that
so
are
they're,
watching?
yep, good question. These are all special property tax
Yeah.
programs, and there's different requirements for the applicants. The Disabled Veterans Program is for those that are 70% or more disabled, that own and occupy a home, so they have to qualify for homestead. And then they either get an exclusion of up to $150,000 worth of value or $300,000, depending on their disability rating. And then it also extends to surviving spouses. And each year, I shouldn't say each year, but it seems like every couple of years, the legislature changes a little bit about that program and tweaks that. I know our VSO office does a great job at trying to get the word out when there's legislative changes. In fact, there was one this past year here that we're communicating with. So that's a great program for veterans. The Class 1B is for blind disabled people. And it isn't a significant benefit, but it is a slight benefit that reduces the class rate slightly, which would equate to calculation of taxes. Your Class 4D are those properties that qualify for low income. And these are always listing on the sheet every year because we don't get that certified to us from the state until after the close of the County Board of Appeal and Equalization. So you always see those Class 4Ds on there. Those usually come in August. And then I think that's open space. This is actually a property out in Decoria Township, and open space is for actually golf courses. Mount Cato is an example where the land may be valued a little bit higher, but they qualify for this program at a reduced rate because they're using it for a certain purpose. And so that's what open space is there. So we have very few of those in the county.
And usually a limited period of time that it can be used, I would assume also.
It depends on the program,
Possibly.
yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any other discussion? Jesse, could you call roll, please?
Commissioner Purvis.
Aye.
Commissioner People.
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer.
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder.
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye. Go ahead.
Okay. The next item I have is the permit application fee structure that we talked about in November at the work session. Since the work session did make some slight revisions there, what we heard at the work session is that you might want to revisit the after the fact fee. And so we made some slight revisions to the fee structure so that if you did want to revisit that we could apply it in mass. In fact, that the after the fact fee would be applied, whether it was a construction permit or land use permit or anything, equally. And so we changed that. And then as well as in talking with Tim Grant, our well specialist, he had mentioned that the well program that we've been a delegated well program county since 1989, that cost share program is wonderful, and people really taking advantage of that. And so we didn't want to disincentivize somebody from trying to seal a well by having a permit fee. So we reduced that back down to 0. And that was more of an educational piece on my part. Tim helped me out with there. So we're recommending 0 for the well sealing, which will hopefully promote that program a little bit more. And other than that, the feedlot fees remain the same as the work session. So we would need a motion here to accept this or any changes that would be proposed.
Brunder would move approval.
People will second.
A motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
We had really good discussion on this at the board work session, so I appreciate that. Mark and I had a couple of conversations after the meeting on these fees, and some of them are going up quite a bit, but we do have to try to support our staff and make sure we're getting reimbursed for some of this stuff. It is hard to make fees go up when we do support some development out in the rural area, but we do have so many other issues that we have to deal with at the permit application process that we probably didn't 15 years ago, and that goes all the way down to drainage, site vision, all kinds of things going on. So it's unfortunate we have to raise them, but we do have to do due diligence on these so we don't have problems in the future. So thank you for this.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Do we get, are we expending all the dollars that we could in well sealing at this point?
That, my understanding, and actually Mike could probably comment on that more from a budgetary standpoint, but those dollars are exhausted each year, yeah.
And I think it's a really positive program, and I do appreciate the 0 because I think that could preclude people from sealing a well, and that's certainly not good for our groundwater.
Right.
Yeah, so thanks for your work.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Jesse, could you call a roll, please?
Commissioner Purvis.
Aye.
Commissioner People.
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer.
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder.
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye. Go ahead.
Okay. The next item then is the reappointments and appointments for our recycling committees, the Planning Commission, and the Board of Adjustment. We have 3 reappointments for the recycling. Sharon Tanley, Madeline Chelsvig, and Ann Ludwig. Those are for 2-year terms, running from January 1st of 2021 through the end of the year on 2022. Additionally, we would have reappointments for the Planning Commission with Kurt Anderson, who is our chair, and Michael, or he goes by Dusty Riley. And that is actually a 3-year term, in that remain the same 3-year term from the bylaws that we revised last month. And that runs from January 1 of 2021 to the end of the year on 2023. And then similarly with the Board of Adjustment, reappointment of Kurt Anderson with the same time frame.
Brunder will move approval.
Purvis seconds.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just a comment. I'd prefer in the future to see these before they come to the board. I'd like to know.
The reappointments?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I would just like to thank these people for their service. It's a
They do
good
great work.
service they provide for us, so thank you.
Yep. It's kind of a volunteer service, so.
It is.
Any other discussion? Jesse, could you call a roll?
Commissioner Purvis.
Aye.
Commissioner People.
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer.
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder.
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye.
Thank you. Have a happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Merry
Thank
Christmas.
you.
Take care of that
Christmas.
cold.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good morning, Michael.
Morning, Michael.
Morning, Mike.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Mike Stolberger, Director of Property and Environmental Resources. I'm going to continue on our department's agenda items. Tab 8 is a legal services agreement with Rinke Noonan, the law firm that has been working with our drainage authority and with our drainage staff for many, many years here. This would be a renewal for another year. We do this as an annual update. This agreement does not change what we've done in the past. It continues our retainer service with Kurt Dieter and other attorneys in his practice there. And then it also allows us to purchase hourly services for any cases that might require that. Price does not change, $200 per month for the retainer. The attorneys providing services do not change as well. I did visit with the county attorney. Pat and I talked a little bit about this. Next year, I think we might want to look at it a little bit more deeply. Kurt is getting closer and closer to retiring, so that might give us some opportunities to change services a little bit. But for right now, it works well for our office, works good for support that we need for our drainage authorities and properties out there. So I would appreciate a motion to accept that for another year. We would be accepting it under proposal option 1, which provides the retainer services on a monthly basis. Then we can answer any questions if you have those as well.
Brenda will move approval.
Purvis seconds.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
The only thing I would like to add is I appreciate you and Pat talking a little bit. It is nice having Kurt on retainer. He's been a benefit, I think, but as he gets older, I would like to see if we can just deal with this in-house. So keep up those conversations with Pat. I appreciate that.
Any other discussion? Jesse, could you call a roll, please?
Commissioner Purvis.
Aye.
Commissioner People.
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer.
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder.
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye. Go ahead.
Thank you, very good. We're moving on to tab 9 then. This would be an update to the joint powers agreement that we have for JBRBA, the Greater Blue Earth River Basin Alliance. This update is necessary for a few reasons. It's an update to the 2003 agreement that is currently in place. We had some statutory construction revisions there that we needed to address. We also needed to respond to some concerns with MCIT and insurance and indemnification clauses. But most importantly, it needed to be updated so that JBRBA could become the fiscal agent for our WAT1, One Watershed, One Plan project. That is now moved towards implementation stage, and so they are going to be the fiscal agent for the funds that will be coming from Bowser, from the state of Minnesota in regards to that watershed district and the activities we'll be taking on there. So needed the updates for that. The contract was reviewed by legal counsel across many departments and organizations, and it seems to meet all of the standards for the group, so we just need it to be approved at each county level, county board level, so that the JBRBA Joint Powers can continue to operate. So again, we would be requesting a motion to sign on and approve that, and then we can again have any discussion or answer any questions that you might have.
Mr. Chair, I'll move the approval of the joint powers agreement with the Greater Blue Earth River Basin.
Purvis seconds.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, so what were MCIT's issues?
Very limited. It was regarding the indemnification clauses in there. They've just updated some of their standards since 2003, and so it was just an opportunity for this to get updated in JBRBA. We really needed to open it up primarily for that fiscal agent role for the WAT1 watershed, and so they just cleaned up some of the other language in there. I was not involved in those very closely. Julie was working with that more, and then just with her extended absence here now, we've tried to help pick up some of those pieces. But my understanding was they were very basic. It was nothing substantial in that regard.
And there will probably be property taxes going towards his plus grants, is that correct?
The funding are you talking for the WAT1 one?
Yep.
Yep, so that should all, the way that is structured, under the idea of the One Watershed, One Plan, is those should all be Bowser funds, state funds that are coming to support that. Where property taxes might become involved is for some of our staff time. That isn't going to be fully reimbursable, obviously, so some of our water planner time, meeting attendance, that sort of stuff would be property tax related. But the actual projects are all supposed to be funded through Bowser's watershed funding.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? Jesse, could you call roll?
Commissioner Purvis.
Aye.
Commissioner People.
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer.
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder.
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye. Thank you very much, Mike.
Very good. Thank you. Yeah, we'll
Thanks,
see you all in
Michael.
2021.
You bet.
Have a good Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Let's see.
See
Got
you.
Greg coming in? Or is he on?
Craig will be
Online.
online.
Are you online? I didn't see your...
Yep.
There you are.
Okay. Yeah, we have one item for board action today. On December 2nd, we received the preliminary survey report it was filed for the improvement in lateral to County Ditch 35. So pursuant to Minnesota Statute 103E.261, Subdivision 1, we're asking the board to set a hearing on the preliminary survey report for January 19th, 2021 at 9 a.m. That, of course, will be at the historic courthouse on 204 South 5th Street, Mankato.
Brunder will move approval.
Purvis seconds. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Jesse, could you call a roll, please?
Commissioner Purvis.
Aye.
Commissioner Peeple.
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer.
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder.
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Have a good Christmas.
Yes, Merry Christmas to
Happy
you.
holidays.
All right, we'll slide right into community corrections.
John will be in just a second.
Morning, John.
Hi,
Morning,
John.
Hi, John.
All right. Ready for me?
We were born ready.
All right. Got a few items for you guys this morning. The first is the appointment of Julie Stevermer to the Community Corrections Advisory Board. We recently had a vacancy from the Human Services side, and so I had reached out to a couple people, and Julie had expressed interest in that. So the request is that the board approves the appointment of Julie Stevermer to the advisory board. I think one of the things that I'm looking forward with Julie is that she's got experience on both the juvenile and adult side. She oversees children's mental health, but then she's obviously also active in the Yellow Line Project and oversees some of the substance abuse reform that's going on as well. So pretty excited to bring her on board.
I'll move approval of Julie.
I'll second it. People
A
second.
motion and a second. Any discussion?
I appreciate that it's someone from Human Services and fills that slot on the board. So thank you.
Yeah, they've been invaluable. You know, we have had representation from them fairly consistently, and due to an employee's departure, we had an opportunity to bring somebody on board. And I know previously it had been a supervisor. Our last appointee hadn't been a supervisor, but you know, that's somebody that I was looking for to fill this position. That's why I reached out to a couple specific people, and Julie stepped up and said she was interested. So I'm excited for that.
I think that's one of the strengths of the Corrections Board is those partnerships.
Absolutely.
Making sure that everybody's connected, so thank you.
Yeah.
And the beauty with that board is it's so diverse.
Yes.
I mean, you have people from all different forms
Yeah.
that are on there, and it really, really helps a lot. I know I've been on the board for 10 years now.
Yeah, yep.
And it's amazing. You see the diversity that's on there. It's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and there was a point in time here, obviously, recently where we weren't able to meet, and now we're figuring that out again, just like everybody else is. So we've been trying to get back together and bring that group together, because it is good to meet and have those people in the room together, even if it's virtually right now, and just talk about some of the things that we're still dealing with and going through even now. So yeah, we've tried to continue to bring that group back together here these last few months, so that's been good.
Any other discussion? Jesse, could you call a roll, please?
Commissioner Purvis.
Aye.
Commissioner Peeple.
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer.
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder.
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye. Go ahead.
Okay, the next item for you guys is the lifetime contract with DIDS, or the Drug Impairment Detection Services program. And so this actually came up here in the fall, or started maybe over the summer. We had a 2-year contract with, it's our iScan machine. So back in 2018, we purchased the machine itself and had a 2-year agreement, and then at that time, you know, we would have to evaluate whether or not we would want to continue operating under a kind of like a subscription contract, or if we would, you know, have an opportunity basically to purchase utilization of the software and maintenance outright, which also includes, as part of that, the call-in system. So we have a call-in system that clients are expected to follow. And then we utilize the iScan machine for an initial screen that can either detect or not detect, and then lead us to potentially doing urinalysis or more drug testing on that client. So the opportunity came up, and they presented basically with the three options: basically a month-to-month contract, a 2-year contract, or the lifetime contract. And really, when we started talking the numbers, I had spent some time talking to Josh about this as well, looking into this lifetime contract in comparison to the month-to-month would have been $1,200 a month. And then you had a 2-year contract, which would have been less than that. It would have been about $900 a month, but over the span of 2 years. So you're looking at just short of about $22,000. And so we really kind of weighed out our options here and what we thought about what we were getting with that service. And so when we're taking a look at all 3 of those options, we thought that this would be the best route to take a look at a lifetime contract. We've been happy with the service. They've made improvements over the last 2 years to the call-in system as well, which is one of the things that I would say that we were giving them some feedback on. You know, we were looking for some things where we could control the system a little more and set things up in a way that we like them, and they've been pretty responsive to that. And so as far as that customer service goes from that aspect, that's been good for us as well. So taking a look at, you know, the broad picture and what we thought we wanted to do moving forward, we thought that this would be an opportunity for us to get in on a lifetime deal, which, you know, is a little different than what you're seeing some of the other vendors do now, where they want you to have a subscription and you're buying something for the next year, or you're buying something for 2 years. So we just saw this as being really good for us to be able to move forward with the iScan machine. So, you know, I think one of the things we obviously had to pause, just like we had to pause testing just in the general sense back in the spring, but we've slowly been able to kind of reintegrate, and you know, we've been able to start testing again, and we've been on hold a little bit with iScan, but we'll be looking to start that back up here pretty soon as well. So just asking that the board approve the lifetime agreement between us and the DIDS company for that lifetime agreement for the software.
Langhammer moves.
People seconds.
Yeah, motion is second. Any discussion?
Mr.
Yes.
Chair? My question is, what is lifetime of a piece of equipment like this?
Well,
And, I mean, I love your figuring out. I mean, yeah, 2 years is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I mean, if you get 3 years out of it, you're money ahead.
Exactly.
But is it a 3 or 4 or 5 year? Is it 10? I just don't know.
You know,
and you might not know neither. But
no, and I can't give you that exact number, but, you know, taking a look at the software and the technology behind it, I would say that you could say you're at a 5+ year plan on this for sure. When we were looking at the cost benefit, and I had this conversation with, because we also do testing for child protection as well. So I brought in child protection and then our assistant PO who does most of our testing. And I said, well, where do you guys feel like we were at as far as the cost benefit for utilizing the iScan in comparison to doing urine testing? And the feedback from both of them was about the time that March came around and everything kind of, you know, really shut down, we were starting to see the benefits, which was a decrease in the collection of urine and an increase in the use of that device. So we could see a decrease in the overall cost as it relates to drug testing. As far as the actual technology goes and the investment into, do you feel like you have something that's going to then benefit you for the long term? I feel like it's there because, you know, I think we'll continue to see that decrease. And I think one of the things as time goes on, you see other counties taking a look at this technology as well. And so Nicollet County has it. And so we've talked about being able to share, you know, can we have people over there to test with them? Can they bring people over here to test with us? And so that collaboration that we can also look at between other counties, I think, is making it more advantageous as well, and thinking a little more long term as far as other counties maybe getting on board with the software and the machine as well, so we can utilize it not just here but in other areas as well. And then the last piece I would say about that is, this was also in March. One of the reasons I think why they were willing to look at a lifetime agreement with us, we were also looking at piloting, and we did a little bit, an app. So we had our drug court agents have on their phone essentially the technology. And so they were able to go out into the field and utilize an app that did the same thing as that machine does, which is at the jail, but through their phone. And so why, you know, I think, you know, the technology is there, you talk 5+ years, I think it's partly that, you know, we got in with him and he's like, would you pilot this for me? It's an app on your phone that essentially is the same technology. And about the time we did the training, it was February. About the time we were looking to really try it out, it was about the 1st of March, and then the middle of March came, and then we basically had to, slow everything down again. So we're going to bring that back up again and get to the point where we can, okay, let's utilize, that piece of the technology as well. So I think we're in a good spot with it.
Mr. Chair?
Like I said, it makes sense to do this.
Well, and you say the 3 year, that's what we've been talking about the whole time. It's like, well, why do you not? I think we're in a good spot with it. You talk about what you're looking at for 2 years, and then, it's almost the same over 2 years. Over 3 years, absolutely, it makes sense. So I think we're in a good spot there.
Mr. Chair, I think that, I'm assuming that with the app or with the machine, it doesn't cost us every time we do one. Whereas with the UA, it costs us every time we do one.
Correct.
So, right there, you're saving money, I
Yeah.
think. I'm excited about the app.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boy.
I know, it could be really nice for an agent out in the field, is say you wanted to do, because historically it was going to somebody's bathroom and having to do a test there, and this would eliminate some of that stuff. So I think that's a nice benefit to have. So.
Yeah, there was always that trick that they could try to play on somebody. And,
yes.
my only concern is, of course, you have a lifetime guarantee on it, is how secure is the business itself? Because if they go out of business in a year, then we're...
Well, and one of the things we ask them about as well is, what if the business sells? And so we build a couple of those things into the contract. If the business sells, we get to continue to have rights to the software. That includes the call-in system as well. So trying to protect ourselves to say, in the event of a sale, can you have language in there that includes the ability for us to maintain control over that software. So, I think that the concern would be after, let's say the business does just shut down. I think one question would be, and I think we're fairly safe because he's got machines in Nicollet, Ramsey, Arrowhead as well. So I think we're okay, and it's not just in the state of Minnesota. I was more worried about if he sold the business. And then if another, company bought him out, would they say, well, no, this is null and void, but we put some language in there to try to protect ourselves against that in the event of a sale. So, but that's the question that poses itself sometimes. I think that, the language in the contract, though, does give us some of those protections.
Awesome.
Mr. Chair, one more question. And you might not know the answer to this. About how much money do we spend on UAs in a year? And I know we're still doing some because the iScan would trigger that. You don't have to answer that, but I think right there you're looking at some savings.
And backing up to the original purchase in 2018, that was the intent. And, I can't give you the exact answer. I can get it for you, but that was our overall, goal behind this, is looking at a reduction in not just having to do the collection and the invasiveness of that, but also the overall costs of using an analyzer. So
I think this is great.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, just to chime in, we typically budget around $36,000 for drug testing. We've been almost right at that. This year, because of the pandemic, we're going to be significantly under that. But that's what's really nice about doing this contract. All the savings that we had, we're able to use the savings of drug testing to use it to do this lifetime contract. And with that amount, we also have to remember, we're also further ahead that we actually have our internal drug lab that we're able to do tests for about 50, like lab run tests for about 50 cents a test. And if we're doing those at a lab, we're around $3 a test. So we very easily could be spending, I would say, $60,000 to $70,000 in drug testing, and we've been in around that $38,000, and this year we'll be underneath that.
I think we're at 45 cents a test in our lab is where we're at. Wow. So.
Yeah, it's gone down since the previous director.
That's not much.
Well,
definitely a step up.
There you
definitely
go.
A step up.
There you go.
This guy does such a good job, I don't remember who that guy was.
Yeah, who was that?
I'm going to stay quiet.
I think we've had enough discussion. Jesse, you want to call the roll, please?
Sure. Commissioner Purvis?
Aye.
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder?
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg?
Aye.
Okay. Last item is the 2021 interim plan. So Every 2 years, we submit a comprehensive plan, and then on the off years, we have to also submit a interim plan to the Department of Corrections. And essentially, the interim plan is any changes or updates to the comprehensive plan from the previous year. And so that you can see, I probably, I'll get my notes up here, direct you guys. Well, first, there is one thing that I'm going to correct. Bucata's listed, I think, on page 3 it is. We're going to correct that.
He's in District 2.
He's a District 2. Well, actually, I think what we're going to do is change Bucata to a professional member from the Diversity Council. I think that was kind of going back to the original reason why Bucata was on the advisory board, was more so to be as a professional member. So we're just going to correct that for future versions. But what I'll do, and a lot of the information in here is just updates to our organizational chart with the changes in the department, updates to the budgets and things like that. So where I would probably direct you guys is to page 14 of that document, which really covers more of the overall changes to, or what the update is for the Community Corrections Department in the last year. And just like everything else, everything really got thrown up in the air in March. We had the best of intentions. It was my first year coming in as director. We had talked about some of the plans that I had with really focusing on our practices, our evidence-based practices, utilization of best practices for our work. And that's really where I was going to focus in. We're going to have some trainings, bring somebody in, and just really focus on our, getting in and getting situated with my first year and getting people in place and then just focusing on our work. Well, March came and everything kind of, went by the wayside. And so we were really focused on, what we had to stop. We had to shut down sentence to service. STS was closed for a while. We couldn't do drug testing for a period of time. So it was, closing everything down. And then, when I've described it to people, is essentially like you're starting over again. So what can you do for STS when you want to start that again? Can you have one person? Can you have them meet you at a location? What locations are okay? And, I think, Eric did a really good job of trying to be flexible. Eric was mowing lawns around some of the government buildings over the summer, but then we started getting crew up and going again. With drug testing, we essentially had to shut it down. And then we had to figure out, okay, how can we get this going again? So, we had to resituate ourselves. We couldn't use the bathroom in our location because it wasn't a good location for us to do it. But the jail had a good location where we could be behind another door. So that's a lot of what we did in the last year, was really try to adapt to all the changes, adapt to teleworking where we had to. And I think the agents did a remarkable job of adapting and changing as things went on. Court was another situation. You're not doing court in person, then you're doing court in person, then you're not doing court in person. And right now, we're not, and that'll be that way probably until February. So we were able to participate in some trainings. A lot of the stuff was done virtually, but I think one of the things about that is that agents realize there is a lot of good training out there, and it doesn't mean you have to be in person for those things. So I think that's one of the things that we learned along the way, is you have to be able to find where you can get things, and whether it was APPA on a national level or some of the local organizations that put on trainings as well, such as MACAC. MACAC's, did a virtual speaker in the fall. They're doing a virtual agent speaker series here over the winter for agents, and so we have a handful of agents that are going to be participating in that. But the biggest thing that I'll mention is the tools on demand. So as this year went on, we were really limited on training, and then the opportunity came up from the Cary Group, and there was a couple counties and the Department of Corrections who had expressed interest in the purchase of the tools on demand, which are essentially worksheets that you can assign to offenders. I did a presentation to our advisory board in November about this, where historically what we had was a paper worksheet, and there are 2 large books that contain different varieties of worksheets that we can give to offenders or clients and ask them to work on them as part of their case plan, and it will focus on maybe their peer relations or their attitude or their substance abuse. And so you're assigning them a worksheet. Maybe it's a worksheet for a client to identify their own strengths. But what the Cary Group has done is they've made these electronic and in a PDF fillable format. And you can set up accounts for your clients, and then you assign them a worksheet, whether it's to their email or a text message, and they can fill them out on a tablet or their phone or a laptop. And when they're done with them, they hit submit and they send it back to their probation officer. So there was a group around the state who had expressed interest, and there was the ability then to purchase them at a very reduced rate. So when you're buying in bulk, you get it for cheaper. If we had tried to do this alone, this would have been a fairly expensive adventure to get into, but and we purchased 20 licenses. And so if we had bought 20 for our own, we would not have received any sort of discount. The state, when they went in together, purchased 480 and allowed each individual agency, though, to basically say, okay, I'll take 20, I'll take 50, I'll take 10. So going in together with a lot of other counties and agencies really was helpful for us to be able to bring those costs down. So we're really excited. I've done a little bit of learning myself. I'm obviously familiar with the guides, but then getting used to the technology side of things is a little different. So we have an in-house trainer who's going to help us kind of with that implementation of the technology side of this. And then there's going to be some additional kind of statewide trainings that are going to be coming up here in January and February where agents can participate and learn a little more themselves. So, you know, we have agents that are familiar with the guides, but now it's learning how to implement them kind of in that virtual format. So sending them out to clients, giving a client a week to fill something out and then return it to them is what they're going to be learning and adapting to here in the next couple of months. So for me, for 2020, you know, that it's coming here at the end of 2020, but that's been, I think, the most exciting thing for me is it's really focusing in on our practice, and this is going to help us working with our clients and not having to, you know, mail out a worksheet, mail it back to me. It's, you know, that communication. I'll send you a text reminder. You still have to work on your strengths worksheet. Can you get that back to me, you know, by your next appointment? And then you can have that communication with your client. And I think that's really what I'm excited about going forward, is really now stepping up our game there with the technology, being able to have this. So,
Mr. Chair, I think using technology makes great good sense. And I think there's a whole generation that's so comfortable with it. I guess my other question is, if somebody's not comfortable with it, there is the option to have paper if needed.
Yeah, we still have those around the office. We actually
Yeah.
have them in the mailroom where we just kind of printed them all out
Yeah.
and have them ready to go. But it's very true. You know, and just like with everything, some people are more comfortable than others.
Yeah.
So, you know, our in-house trainer, you can see that she's diving in and she's learning. We have an agent that works in drug court and he loves them. You know, he's always been a huge fan. And so one of the advantages from the administrator standpoint is that I can see where agents are assigning worksheets now. So we have kind of a dashboard. It's a really user-friendly system. So I can log in, I can see a dashboard, I can see who's assigning what guides to what people. And I can see what domains, so you talk about what do you want to focus on for your clients in the broad aspect of things. You can see that we're assigning more worksheets as it relates to clients' attitudes or on substance abuse, and not as many on family. And so that's the nice piece of it from the administrator standpoint as well. I like that technology, but we have some people that aren't as comfortable, and so that's going to take them a little longer. Or they might still use paper, you know, and that's okay.
Well, it makes so much sense to me, and you know, you don't need all that paper just hanging around either. And like you said, you can look at it and see where everything's going, as opposed to going through reams of paper to try to figure that out, or reports.
Yes.
So I'm a big believer.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
All right.
Are you done?
I think so.
All right. Thank you very much, John. That was very informative, and we appreciate it.
If I could just make one request, that we see the opportunities for people to be on the advisory committee earlier than it just coming up today.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, appreciate it.
We'll make note of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to
Thanks,
take a
John.
10-minute
Chair,
recess.
I think we need a motion to approve this plan, though.
yes.
Before we break.
Purvis moves approval.
People seconds.
Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Jesse, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Purvis.
Aye.
Commissioner Pepo.
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer.
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder.
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye. Thank you very much, John.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Merry
Happy
Christmas.
holidays.
And now we will take a 10-minute recess. A break. All right. Well, excuse me. So, we are now going to Human Services, and we have Mr. Phil Clausen and Kelly. Go ahead.
Looks more like Santa Claus.
Good morning. So I'm going to do just a real quick explanation of the Mass before I kick it back to Phil. It's in honor of Commissioner Purvis's last meeting. Back in the 70s sometime, the exact year to remain under wraps, I was the Grinch who stole Santa Claus. But don't worry, at the end of the play, I returned him and all was good. So
Awesome.
we thought we'd have a little fun with that.
I like the
That's
Grinch.
great.
That's good. I
That's
like that.
great.
So Kelly calls me on one of those days like, "You think you'd wear a Santa Claus mask to board?" And I'm like, "Bah humbug." Not doing it. It's a lot of fun.
So where'd you get them?
Amazon.
Oh,
Of course.
What can't you get from it?
yeah, that's true.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, thanks for hearing us today. I have a lot of action items per usual at the end of the year, and so I'm going to try to move through those quickly. If I'm going too quick, by all means, if the chair is up for it, we can ask some questions along the way because there are a lot of items.
You go ahead.
Thank you. First section under action items is financial assistance. We have AmeriCare mobile van, and this is a provider for us that provides non-emergency medical transport for medical assistance recipients in our community. The rates are set by DHS, and so we really do not have any control over those, and they have not changed since the last year. The term of this contract is January 1st of 21 through December 31st of 21. Also under financial assistance, Lingual One, and this is our vendor that helps with interpreting services. The county is required to provide this, and the rate will remain the same as previous years. I know it's hard for the board to sometimes understand, and these rates are very complex, but in general, just an example, $50 for the first hour in this contract, and then additional hours of $38. And there's a lot of nuance to that inside the contract beyond that.
Mr. Chair, can I
yes.
ask a question?
Yes.
On AmeriCare, is that just kind of a pass-through from the state? We bill them for whatever?
It's a great question. It's a hot topic in our shop this week, Commissioner, just because they do have some technology that can be direct billed, and we are trying to sort through that, if that can be widespread direct billed. Usually it is billed through us, and it is a pass-through, so the answer to your question is yes, but we're wondering if there's not even an easier interface to have the vendor direct bill to the state when the state sets the rate, and there is that. So we're exploring that. Very hot topic, but at this juncture, the right answer would be yes, it's a pass-through.
Okay, and my second question is on the interpreter. Is that totally a county cost, or does the state participate in that?
And that's a really good question as well. I do believe we pay the freight on that, and some of that, would have federal participation back. So, there's probably another complex answer to all of that, like everything we do. But on the upfront of it, we do contract directly. It's our mandate, and we pay. But they have some costs, like Language Line is available. That's a state-provided piece. So there is some sharing of costs.
Okay.
I certainly want to present that appropriately.
I think it's really important. I think it's critical.
Critical. It's
Yeah.
absolutely critical.
I was just curious about the participation.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. Also then, mental health center. This first item I actually asked through Bob that we just put on pause. We're still talking with Michael about his contract, and the discussions are ongoing, and so I would like to just bring that one back if the chair and the board's okay with that. So that's an unusual circumstance, but we're in the middle of discussions and realized maybe we shouldn't push this through as it is. The next one involves Deb Sowers, another one of our psychiatric providers in our mental health clinic.
doing medication management services for us. She also has the title of clinical director, which has long been held by Dr. Farnsworth. And she's doing a real nice job just trying to do a transition with us as our clinic is changing over time. You'll see the terms in her contract not to exceed $194,620.80 in 2021. That is a max, and so there's some hours that are paid based on how much are actually provided as well in this contract. The term January 1st of 21 through December 31st of 21. Very similar, Michael Goblish, another psychiatric advanced practice nurse for the mental health center. His contract rate is $104.55 per hour, and there was a cost of living of 2.5% in these contracts. His not to exceed number is $108,732. Same term, January 1st, 21 through December 31st of 21.
Mr. Chair, and I'm assuming that's similar to that most of the cost is borne by the county.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So in our clinic, I mean, it's really interesting, Commissioner, too, that these are all, when Bob and I talk about board workshops, if you are interested, like I even thought, like, you know, the interpreting services. Well, I don't touch that every day, so it'd be a very interesting discussion to have and have a supervisor come in and say, how do we actually do this and how does the money flow?
I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the same with our clinic. It's another area where there's a lot of, you know, kind of storytelling of how does it really go. And in all due respect, I am not always expert about those day-to-day operations. In this case, just because I came from this area in mental health, I do know how that breaks out, that there's some direct county costs usually attributed to a sliding fee based on income, so there are times where we pick up the tab because of lack of resources. There's third-party payers, which include all of our PMAP providers, so the community-based state helped funded MA rates that are packaged into a managed care organization. And then there's straight insurance as well, that if people do have means, they come in, they have an insurance, they give us their card, and we bill their insurance. And so in those cases, it's sometimes 100% covered. So again, complex answer, but it would be not difficult for us to kind of show that story in some more detail.
It'd be really helpful for me because we're responsible fiduciary, as a fiduciary, and I just think it'd be helpful. Thank
Absolutely. And you know, we have tried to become more and more sophisticated. We have a billing arm of what we do, which specializes in what they call E&M coding. So all of the therapy or psychiatric services are coded according to a manual. We have really technical people that know how to speak that language and know how to bill. And a lot of times it's rejected the first time, you have to appeal. And you know, so that whole business process is certainly under the auspices of our county board. And it is very complex, but I actually think we do that extremely well. We've invested some resource, and I think our return on investment for how we've been able to bill has been remarkable to our budget. I think it's really helped our budget to be able to do recoveries at a very high level.
Yeah. I just think it'd be helpful for us to not really, we're not going to remember it all by any means,
Right.
but just kind of hearing how
Absolutely.
it works and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. And I know that you guys have been really good about getting the dollars that are owed.
Right, really practical, leave out all the acronyms, is we got to be able to tell our story. And it's kind of like when you go in front of our county board or you go testify at the legislature, you got to be able to tell the story of this is how it actually works. Everyone here knows how complicated behind the scenes when you unbundle really any business, but a psychiatric clinic, it's very complex. But we still should be able to tell our story to our community and to our board very easily, and I think we're able to do that. So yeah, it'd be a good thing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Support services, this is our longstanding document scanning contract with MRCI. As Commissioner Brunder knows, and you all know, MRCI has gone through a lot of changes, triggered in large part or some part by COVID, but there's other things under the surface that are there as well. This is one of the remaining pieces that we're hanging on to for now. I'm bringing this forward for this year, and really it's to keep our document imaging services going. It does access to all the departments in the county at this point. That wasn't true a few years ago, but Bob has allowed us to kind of expand that, and that has made us more viable in these recent years. We do have a mandate for record detention. There's a lot of rules around that. How we do that, though, has, you know, a lot of nuance to it. This is a renewal contract as it is with MRCI, $41,860 for the calendar year, January 1st, 21 through December 31st, 21. Then under public health, certainly if I don't get this right, Kelly will correct me being here today, but we have 3 items under public health. The WIC contract, this contract allows us to provide the WIC clinic, which stands for Women, Infants, and Children. Our WIC clinic really focuses on supplemental nutrition vouchers, breastfeeding information and supports, and nutrition education for eligible children and families. This is a 1-year extension. There is a 5-year kind of formatted contract that we use, and for this year it is stable at $227,135. We also receive additional funding in addition to that base amount of $16 per appointment, and the term, January 1st of 21 through December 31st of 21. Next item, Minnesota Department of Health COVID vaccination grant. This is new. I will say, I'll have to change masks with Kelly that we were hoping for about twice this amount. And so it was a little disappointing, but we'll take $26,988 from the state for vaccination-related tasks. We are in the throes, and Kelly will talk about this day to day, of trying to sort out who the priority groups are going to be, how does this vaccine come to us, what's our role in that, and as well as in the whole puzzle pieces of our community, who else is going to be giving the shots, how does that all go as far as the protocol, and there are a lot of questions that are not answered at this point. So you will see some fatigue, not just from us, but from the other direct care providers, of feeling the stress and pains of what we've been through already, and now heading into this very intense need to get this vaccination as our top priority. So Kelly will talk about that in just a couple minutes.
We received a text from Senator Friends stating that they passed the COVID bill at the state, and that Blue Earth County may receive a sizable portion. I'm not sure where we can use that money, but I can just about imagine that that's probably where some of this money will be going to.
Nice. So maybe it's not lost forever, but maybe redirected. Yes.
I've actually got the bill here, and it's for eligible businesses or nonprofits.
Okay,
Yes,
so
Mr. Chair, it is a business assistance program, funding that'll come to counties to be
so
utilized.
it's not for county.
It is not intended for vaccination clinics.
Misunderstood then.
Well, he didn't, he said, you know, they hadn't passed it yet, and he wasn't sure what was all going to be in it.
He just thought there was a wide range.
Yeah.
And I must say that this is exactly like when Kelly and I meet, Mr. Chair, is that, you know, we think it's one thing, it's another thing. We think it's going to be 50-some thousand, it's 26,000, and you just hear that on a given day and keep moving forward. My complaint is I'm more of a chess player, like I want to see things coming, what's the strategy, how do we make our next move? And for the past 10 months, there's been none of that. I mean, you just absolutely have to react to what happens today. And it's a very different way to manage. I don't like it. I'm ready to move on. Get this COVID cloud out of here. Hopefully the vaccine will be a huge part of that answer.
Well, the Commissioner of Health said the other day that they certainly weren't getting the funding from the feds that they needed.
Okay.
And it appears, as of yesterday, that they're going to separate state and local aid out of the bill that's currently going through Congress. And they might take it up later.
Sure.
You know, we all know what that means.
Yeah, right.
So, anyway.
Yeah, and I know Kelly's, again, going to drill into some of this, but that whole ripple effect to this conversation is even if a pot of money or some of the money is directed at any part of our delivery system, there can be positive ripples too. So if there is infused dollars in a certain area, you know, she's going to talk about our volunteers, and if we can get nurses to volunteer and there's some relief of the pressure, we can do a clinic that's bigger scale and scope than if just a handful of people raise their hands.
Yep.
And so it all kind of ties together regardless of if it goes to small businesses. Maybe some of those small businesses have nurses employed by them and they could cut them loose and help with this vaccine. I mean, we see it happen, kind of that trickle down philosophy. So, annual local public health act funding. So this is our one of our larger overarching grants that we get from the state. It does go to our community health board, which our board, acts as both our county board of commissioners and our health board. And our amount for 2021 is $226,647. This is the second year of a 5-year budget cycle that'll run through the 2024, and the term for them this year will be January 1st of 21 through really December 31st of 21. It says 24 in the report, but that's just because the base grant is stated that way. Children and Family Services, just one contract here, Greater Minnesota Family Services. This is our family group decision making, another area that I think we have a story to tell about this, and this service provided through Greater Minnesota is a multi-county kind of, we tail on to Brown County, who's the host, but it really is for relative searches, meaning getting to know the family's footprint, and then also how we do planning activities around the family. So family group decision making is bringing all the stakeholders, aunts, uncles, even neighbors, if that's how the family relates, to family, and say who can help, who can help with this story. We're hurting in this particular way. Let's put a plan together that's not one-dimensional. And so we see this as a very valuable part of our practice. It's not cheap. You'll see 20 sessions, $26,600, and then any additional session are costed out at $1,330. But I do feel it's money well spent. If we set a good table with these cases and really have family involvement, it's just a much stronger scenario than if we try to do it again with a very limited view. Term is January 1st of 21 through December 31st of 21.
Mr. Chair, we're looking at the long term, not the short term here, and I think that's really positive, and I think it's really positive that the partners that are connected to this, because everybody plays a part. So,
right. So the alternative would be a social worker doing their best to put a plan together, going before, let's say if it is court involved, before a judge and telling a story. That to me could work. You'd save 20 grand, but you have no family involved, and there's no bigger picture going on. There's no long-term approach. So that's absolutely what we're talking about here. Under community services, we have Woodland Centers, and this is for a detox backup. Whenever, and the rules around detox is it's both people in our county, but also people that might be traveling through our county and are detained by law enforcement. We also pay for those detox holds. And this backup is located in Wilmer, Minnesota, pretty far away, so travel is an issue. Really only used when Brown County Evaluation Center is full. The daily rate at Wilmer is $580 a day, which is an increase of 4.5% from our previous contract. They also have other services that are listed in this paragraph of adult crisis service, youth crisis service, with different rates. We very seldom use those, but it is nice to have those out there in case we would need them. Term of this contract, January 1st of 21 through December 31st of 21. Zumbro Valley is a very similar contract, backup to Brown County Evaluation Center. Zumbro is located in Rochester, so a little closer, and a better rate of $398.85. Again, coming from this area of practice, it seems like, the full moon, all detoxes are full. And law enforcement on our board knows that when it rains, it pours, and there's days where you call one and beds are full in Brown County, their beds are full in Wilmer, beds are full even here. So we do have backup to the backup is what we've called it over the years, and usually we're able to find a solution with these 2 backup contracts in addition to our primary provider. Next section is disability services. The first two contracts I'll take together unless there are specific questions, but Care Transport LLC and WS Transport really are similar vendors to us. They help with our medical appointments for waiver-related transportation needs. DHS has what they call a negotiated market rate for these services. I did put in a range just so the board would have some idea. It's again complex based on a couple of major factors that you'll see in that kind of final part of the first paragraph. An individual that requires a lift that might be in a chair has a different rate range, and then mileage is the other big factor, and so there's some additional variables in addition to those, but you'll see, like if somebody is not needing a lift, it starts at $17.50 a ride, and then you'll see with a lift, the highest rate that they have based on mileage, $95.50 for a ride. And so there's a whole scale and chart that goes with this, and it does apply directly to Care Transport and WS Transport, the next item on our list. Both contracts January 1st, 21 through December 31st of 21. Board has seen this next item before. This is just trying to get the board to make sure that you're comfortable with our practices for day training and habilitation. DT&H is often how it's referred to. This is specific to individuals who are in intermediate care facilities, so Harry Myring would be an example of that, where they stay. And then there's different providers that provide this day training and habilitation service, so they transport them or they can do it on site depending on the location of the individual. It is again based on medical assistant recipients. The vendors we're talking about, Harry Myring, REM, LifeWorks, MRCI, all similar base contract. And then we're given individual service agreements for each individual person that details out how this fits for them. Again, as kind of a base example, the day service rates are $86.53. A partial day is $62.17, and the transportation, if they are being transported to a location, $30 a day. The term is for calendar year 2021.
Mr. Chair? Does Medicare, do they accept Medicare reimbursement for the total bill, or do we add to that?
It's a really good question. Usually, I think we're talking about medical assistance in these cases.
Yeah, I'm
yes.
sorry.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. So medical assistance, yes. And what it would be again is when you brought up like the pass-through, is we're able to bill out some of those services, or if they have a PMAP provider, depending on how that goes. If they're over 65, it gets into some of what Kelly does for us through public health. If they're disabled, that is Lynette and disability services. So it breaks according to those lines. But yeah, we see medical assistance as really a third-party payer, and so we're basically billing for those things. And again, with the pass-through, that's really what we're doing in effect.
Thank you.
Ethical Solutions, our next item. This is a new guardianship provider. Our county board has really kept the doors open, that if somebody comes to town and wants to be in a certain business, that we try to accommodate that. This is one of those examples where we do have other vendors in this space providing guardianship services to vulnerable adults, people that are not able to maybe do their day-to-day decision-making on their own accord. And so we do support that with this service at $48.50 per hour, and that is in alignment with the other vendors in our community. The term for this contract, January 1st, 21 through December 31st, 21. And then MRCI Extended Employment Daycare. This is similar to our previous one. The difference is that people could be in the community and accessing the services as opposed to being in a facility is the distinction I'm making. The rates are structured in a different way for extended employment, which is $151 per month per client, and that is going to $168.25 per month under this contract. That's a significant percentage increase, as is the next part of this that I'll talk about. We have kept those frozen for a long time and been in ongoing discussions over the years with MRCI, trying to use what you see later in this paragraph, the state rate management system to try to come up with a fair rate. And so we do see an increase here. It involves 22 individuals, so it's not a huge volume area, but we are trying to be equitable in how we pay for these services. The second part of that is adult daycare. That's again structured differently at $3.52 per quarter hour. So a different way to do this type of billing. And you'll see that that was an increase of 46 cents. So again, on a percentage basis, that is a significant increase, but we do feel like we're more in line with what the going rate is, and MRCI has made it perfectly clear that that's how they see it, so that we could help out here. And so we are trying to meet them in the same direction, standing in that gap and trying to make sense out of it. The ratio for this service is 1 staff per 5 clients of the agreement, January 1st, 21 through December 31st, 21. And then the final item is just about our advisory committee and task force appointments. You'll see the list of the 21 appointments that we're proposing, and then reappointments, people who have been, so the new folks are the first section, and the reappointments of people that have served in the past are the second section on the attachment in your report. And then there's a final page which we tend to look at and just look at vacancies. And so you'll see in your district if there are places where we could use more volunteers, which has been an issue. We almost always are looking for more volunteers. Sometimes it's difficult to fill those posts.
Mr. Chair, I'd appreciate seeing these ahead of time, so,
Right.
there are people who are interested that talk to me, and I don't think I have any vacancies. I think it's incorrect on the list.
Okay.
I think the District 1 got put down into the total.
Oh, sure. Very
I'd love to have vacancies, don't get me wrong.
I don't see it. Right. You're right. Sure looks that way. Comments on that will be that I think that's an admirable goal. I certainly will comply with that. There are some workflow things that we're going to have to think about with these appointments. One is that off cycle, so that as you can imagine, during the year we might have a vacancy, and how do we handle that? And if we can feed that back through the board, certainly willing to do so. We do not have that workflow set up, so this has been centralized really with Noel Brunder, who takes people, put them on a list. Usually there's a waiting list in your district, there isn't. And then we just kind of cycle through that as the year goes on. And so that's usually has been our way. I think what we need to do is reroute that, figure out how do we, when we get somebody that is interested, kick that over to their commissioner, let them see it, come back and see if there's any concerns or anything.
And some
like that.
people don't even know how to apply.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that would be helpful.
Sure.
So I guess my question was, if I could see it ahead of time, so
Absolutely.
I could tell people.
And in that regard, as far as, because we really are interested in looking for folks that are willing to serve, and the commissioners are a great resource to that, as people might come up to you and chat with you, or somebody that you know that is willing to serve. Noelle is our contact at this point, so if it happens in the next several months, Noelle Brunder would be the right person to contact. You could certainly just send it to me and I'll get it to her. It should not be hard if you have anybody interested, and we'll take care of that. So.
Thank you.
But yeah, we'll look at that whole workflow and try to come up with something that solves the problem. Information and discussion items from me, and then I will turn it over to Kelly here. Disability services are up this month, and
Phil,
a couple. Yes.
Maybe we should vote on the action item?
You think
We should
so?
probably get a motion.
I've never heard of such a thing. Yes.
Langhammer moves it.
People seconds.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? We've been discussing the whole time, but it's-
Only I have been.
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
No, that's what it's all about, how we learn. Any other discussion? Jesse, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Purvis?
Aye.
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder?
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg?
Aye. Now go ahead.
Thank you.
You betcha.
I got so excited to almost being done, right? Almost making it through.
Mr. Chair, I think I made a mistake. Did we want to omit I can't read my writing.
Farnsworth.
Farnsworth, do we want to take that out?
Correct.
and I didn't say that.
Oh, I
So
guess
I'd like
I
to-
understood that you were gonna take that out to start with, and that's what the motion would have been, have them take it out.
That works for me, I just want to
With
make
that,
sure that we're
with
clear.
that, that's what I understood. Is
Okay.
that the work for you, Bob, Jesse?
That's how I recorded the motion.
Okay,
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. See, I still get moving so fast, I didn't think about that either, Commissioner, so I think if we have that all in good order. To the informational discussion items, and then we're in the Disability Services Unit of Human Services. The first slide in your packet looks at waiver data, and you'll see two different parts of this as we go through the slides. Lynette Ayers, our supervisor, provided me talking points, but I included them in on purpose. There is a typo that I found this morning in here that I'll point out, but just because I thought even for you, it does give a little more definition to what exactly we're talking about. And this does get somewhat confusing with the acronyms, so I will go through that with the board here. So the waiver data in the chart, you look at 2015 through 2019, you'll see that there's some increases in the two first areas, the non-waivered services. Actually, there was a reduction this year, which is somewhat unusual, but it has been trending downward. The overall total served has increased really year over year, which we've talked to the board about a lot, and you've supported us with new staff. This is an area where, because of reimbursements, we are able to recover almost all or all of our costs for the staff that do this work, which helps from the business aspects. The acronyms, the DD column is the developmental disability waiver, so that's a different distinction there. And then it says CCB. If you take the first letter of the following three categories, you'll see CCB. So the CAC, which is really focused on highly involved medical individuals, CADI, which crosses over a more broader population of any disability, including mental health, and then brain injury, which now is referred to, it used to be TBI, and now it's referred to as BI. And so that's the catch-all, those three combined in that second column. You'll see what the non-waiver services include, which, again, the numbers aren't nearly as high as the other waivered programs, but there is a listing of the different areas if you would happen to hear any of those titles at any point. At the bottom of the first page, you'll see overall 13 case managers and average caseload size of 64.69 in 2019. This is a very high number still, but much more manageable. We're approaching in the 70s, and the board has given us significant relief with added staff, which is really critical for our practice. Like I say, there's a talking point page. Maybe just to always do this part, and again, it's the world according to my own thing, what helped me. But when we talk about waivered services, historically, my working definition of that is people that would qualify based on what they're presenting with for a nursing home. And we're waiving that. We're saying they don't need the nursing home. We're going to do this other thing. We're going to keep them in the community. We're going to put a package together. That's what the waivered service is. Depending on what they present with, a brain injury or DD or a mental health problem that's impairing enough to meet nursing home level criteria, we're coming up with a different plan that we hope will be more cost effective and keep them engaged in the community more than facility-based care. So that just back in the day really helped me, and so I tend to tell that story, but there's certainly a lot of detail in each of these waivers. The first bullet, just obviously we're trying to keep people stay in their home, decrease hospitalization, and decrease the dependency on institutional care. And there's also a cost benefit in this as well for taxpayers. Waivered services allow clients to direct their own care. And then the third bullet I'd highlight as well is it really allows them to be involved in other social services and to obtain case management where they have a person who can help navigate really the system for them. So those are the big components of why we do waivers and why there's such an investment in the waiver programs. The next data slide is more about our assessments, and we all have heard a lot about MnChoice's assessments. It does cross over into Kelly's world, so over 65 includes public health. And this first chart is a little convoluted because it does, as you'll see the note, the second starred note, that it does include the over 65, so the data gets skewed when we just draw it from Department of Human Services. What you do see in that kind of overall public health, disability services is a pretty flat story of resources used for the assessments, the reassessments over time, and we expect that to stay high volume, and we don't see any huge blip ups since we've talked about county of location, and I will talk about that more in just a minute. The second chart is our data, and so we've pulled out the public health part, just look at the disability services, which we're talking about today. It's a little bit of a cleaner slide. You do see an increase in numbers at the end, which is our experience that we've continued to be busy in this area. The initial assessments went down some. These reassessments, and what I want to say there is county of location. So if somebody is using some of our group homes and area resources, which we know we're a huge importer of this service, we are now, and this is why we staffed up, on the hook for the reassessment when that comes up, that they need to be reassessed. And so that's been a big driver of numbers. I don't expect that to keep flipping up dramatically, but we've gone through a pretty significant increase in that area because prior to this, we weren't on the hook. You'd have to assess your own people wherever they were, each county. So county of location is COL. The other thing we talk about in acronyms is county of residence, so county of financial responsibility, CFR. And so we might have somebody up in Duluth, another big import area where they have lots of group homes is what the truth is. And so they import a ton of people up in St. Louis County. We used to have to drive up there and do the reassessment. Now they have to do it. So their county board had to deal with this huge influx of numbers like we did. We, Rice, a few others are at the top of those lists as far as a hub county with resources.
The regional centers.
Regional centers,
Yeah.
absolutely, Commissioner. Yeah. So you'll see the breakdown again, trending upwards for the under 65. Just a couple of highlights off the notes here, and I will be done. The first bullet on the talking points for the assessments and reassessments is just a general rise in the under 65 population. I think that's important to emphasize. The fourth bullet down, case manager reassessments completed for clients we serve for both waivered services and non-waivered services, so all those categories on the first slide. And then a thing that we've talked about in the past, which is a striking thing, being a clinician in my prior life, that the assessment takes 9.2 hours to complete on average. It's been years and years, and I just have a hard time choking that out. If you do diagnostic assessment as a psychologist, usually an hour and a half is what you need. And here's 9.2 hours to do this. It's a big assessment, don't get me wrong. It takes that much time. It's just, I always struggle with the fact that the minute you're done, things could change for that individual. And so how much you invest needs to be balanced with how fluid a person's real life really is. And so I just always emphasize that point. At this point, it seems to be working, but it is a big chunk of time that we put into staff time for that.
A question, is that both federal and state roll and reg?
No, I think the state had a
It's all
lot to
state?
do with how we did design this, and I do think the state has some control over that assessment piece. That's a great question, but I'm almost certain of that. The way it flows down from CMS or from the feds is certainly there's a integration there, but the state has control over, I think, because they're the ones that redesigned it and came up with it, so that's why I say that.
I kind of figured that because it said
Yeah.
MnChoices, but I was just
Yeah.
curious. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'll defer to my colleague. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Phil.
Thanks.
Thanks, Phil.
Good morning again.
Good morning.
Oh, it's Kelly under there. I thought it was Grinch.
Yeah, that's what the younger kids in Rapid Elementary thought was my name for many, many years. So I think we rectified that by the end. So today, my update is all about vaccine planning, vaccine response, lots of wheels in motion. As Phil noted, lots of information changing daily. I have 3 meetings later today where I know there'll be additional updates and probably additional information. So the picture on your slide is actually of a refrigerator unit and a freezer unit. Those are what we're going to be storing our vaccines in the coming weeks. They're currently being stored by our emergency management partners at the Justice Center. So they were gracious to hang on to our items until we have a place for them. The rules around vaccination storage are very tight. You cannot use dorm refrigerators. You cannot use combination freezer refrigerators. These units are very challenging to come by between the private market wanting these and public health wanting some of these storage units. We had to do a number of hours of work to find these. So once we finalize our location, we will set them up and start monitoring temperatures. We invested in new technology. We have data loggers that will send information to several staff's phones, as well as our emails, letting us know what the temperatures are. It will alert us if the unit's narrow temperature range for either refrigerated vaccines or frozen vaccines goes out of range, and then we'd be able to take action from there. In addition to that, we also check temperatures physically. We go to the actual unit 2 times a day, once in the morning and once in the afternoon, for sure Monday through Friday and at times Saturday and Sunday, so that we're able to ensure that that vaccine is being stored properly and is viable when we go to administer it.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Did the federal government or the state government pay for those?
The grant that you talked about earlier will cover some of the cost of storage, vaccine storage.
I'm just trying to figure out how that's all rolling out, because I know the commissioner said that they were very nervous about not having the funding they needed, let alone the funding local governments need. So, questions?
Good question. So there's guiding principles for the entire vaccination effort across the U.S. So one of the overarching principles are maximizing immediate health benefits to reduce deaths and serious illness. We're going to start with those most susceptible to serious complications and those who care for them. So, making sure that those who are disproportionately impacted receive the vaccine through equitable distribution and access. The amount of the vaccine that the state receives is determined by the federal government. There's a federal committee of experts who prioritize the vaccine in each phase, and then it is further defined by the state committee of experts that provides recommendations on how to implement those priority groups. The state committee does receive input from local public health and our healthcare coalitions across the state. So there's been active conversations over the last couple of months on that vein. There's a phased approach to vaccination. So phase 1A, you've probably heard about in the news, and that is to vaccinate healthcare personnel, long-term care residents, and staff. That is the Pfizer vaccine. I'll get into the different presentations of vaccine in just a little bit here. Phase 1, or phase 1B, focuses on essential workers, so education, food and agriculture, fire, corrections, transportation, and other similar groups. Phase 1C focuses on adults with higher risk medical conditions and those over 65. There are 2 presentations of vaccine. One is from Pfizer, the other is from Moderna. Both vaccines have an indication, are indicated to be 95% effective, so that's very good news. Both vaccines require 2 doses. Spaced apart, I believe Pfizer is 21 and Moderna is 28 days. More information on the Moderna vaccine on exactly how flexible is 28 days is still coming. Neither vaccine is required or will be mandated due to the emergency use authorization status, or the EUA status, and safety is definitely a priority for these vaccines. There has been a number of studies and safety over the years, although definitely ramped up obviously in the last year, given our situation.
They've come out and said that all these vaccinations were going to be free to the public. Is that your understanding? Or?
I know as public health, we are going to be vaccinating. I believe there's an administration fee that will be able to be charged, but I would need to do a little more research. So that was similar to H1N1, but there would be no cost to the person, potentially cost to insurance companies.
Okay.
Kind of like the saliva test.
Correct.
I assume because if you have insurance, they bill the insurance company, but if you don't have insurance, it's free.
Right, and the co-pays and deductibles are not passed on to the person.
Right.
With the saliva testing or the vaccine,
Yeah.
as I understand it. So as widely reported yesterday, the first shipment of Pfizer vaccine arrived in Minnesota. This is the vaccine that requires that ultra-cold storage, the 70 below. Once it's removed from that storage, there's a very limited amount of time that you have to use it. It's around 5 days. This is the vaccine that our hospitals are receiving. So Mayo Hospital in Mankato and Allina Hospital in New Ulm are our hubs. They received the vaccine, and then they will distribute to smaller hospitals and ambulance services associated with hospitals as kind of that hub and spoke model. The other presentation is Moderna, and that is the presentation that we're expecting at local public health. So local public health clinics, pharmacies, all of us will be receiving that particular presentation. It comes in batches of 100. Each vial contains 10 doses. This vaccine is initially frozen as well, but then it can be moved to refrigerators. So when it is frozen, it's viable for 6 months in that state. In 30 days, once we move it to the refrigerator. So it gives us more time to work and get through our vaccination clinics than the Pfizer presentation does. At the county and local levels, we have been working on vaccine planning for many, many months. Actually, kind of was on our radar from the very beginning. Putting into place the details putting in place plans as the details were released. So the South Central Healthcare Coalition has been focused on phase 1A with the hospitals, working on storing, redistributing all of the Pfizer vaccine that has come in. Local public health, we've been planning with our coalitions for long-term care staff and residents with current focus on EMS providers who are, so there's two kinds, when I think of EMS, when you think of ambulance, there's ambulances that are associated with the hospital, and then there are independent ambulances, and those could fall in different priority groups. Our future role centers around assuring individuals who may not be served by other systems are able to receive vaccination. So kind of a little bit of now and a little bit of look into the future. Similar to how we've managed, so I'm going to move into now a little bit more of once we have the vaccine, how are we going to actually vaccinate folks? So similar to how we've managed other outbreaks and responses, people in priority groups will actually schedule with us. We're fortunate enough to be able to review some of the software for scheduling. And this will allow us to, so very different than H1N1 where we said, we're having a clinic at MSU on Saturday or Sunday a week before Christmas, come and get in the line. We're gonna actually have schedules, so very much like a clinic. This will allow us to distance people, work through any paperwork, and provide observation for the 15-minute wait period that is required for emergency use authorization vaccine at the end. We consulted, that was actually done in consultation with Blue Earth County Information Technology Department. They were absolutely fantastic. We reviewed a number of different softwares. We ultimately, the group decided the software called PrepMod that the state purchased was the best option for us, and that is able to be accessed at no cost to the county. The other benefit with PrepMod is it uploads into MIC, or our MTRAC system, our vaccine registry. There's a requirement that all vaccinations provided are uploaded into that system within a 24-hour period, so a really quick turnaround time on that. So we continued to continue with many other local logistics and operations, ordering PPE, gloves, syringes, a number of just different pieces that we need for that. We know there are kits coming from the state as well, but we're not sure. We just want to make sure we have enough. So we're factoring that into our PPE. We have vaccine coolers actually this round, so if we need to distribute vaccine as well, we're able to maintain that temperature and get that out to other providers. Say a customized living who decides to vaccinate their own staff and residents, we're able to get that to them and ensure the viability of the vaccine. We're working on securing items like tables and chairs and all of the other pieces needed. social media messaging, other community messaging. And that's where I'm going to stop and pause. There are many, many other things. I could talk for quite a while with all of, get into the detail and into the weeds, but I'm going to pause here for questions.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
I guess as you schedule, you're looking for a space to do those, I'm assuming, so that's one piece. But like for a nursing home or something, would you go to the nursing home or would you give it to them to do or have, and maybe you haven't gotten through all of this. There's so much to think about. I can't imagine what you're going through.
So we'll split that out. So
Yep.
nursing homes are actually going to be covered under what's called a PPP, or a public-private partnership, where pharmacies are actually going to be vaccinating staff and residents in the skilled nursing facilities. Customized living could be a little different, even though those are also long-term care, under the long-term care umbrella. We may end up vaccinating, or they may actually vaccinate if they've signed a provider agreement. So if they signed a provider agreement with the state of Minnesota, they could receive their vaccine directly, they could receive their vaccine through us, and they would be able to do that independently. If there is not a provider agreement signed, then local public health is responsible. We can't shift and say, here's the vaccine, you go ahead and vaccinate. If they don't have that provider agreement, then we have the responsibility to do that.
Okay.
A number of our assisted livings are working on provider agreements or have them in place. So we're monitoring, we're working on that as well.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair, a quick question. Has there been any indication of how long the vaccination will be effective?
There's still a lot of research to be done on that. So it may be, I know I was reading some literature yesterday that said it may be an annual vaccination like a flu shot. They're monitoring that very closely.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair?
Yes?
If you go in for your first shot and don't get your second shot in the 21 days or the 28 days, I don't remember what the two numbers were, what leeway is that, or don't they have that information at this point?
I don't have that information at this point for the Moderna, and Pfizer is in the hospital's auspices, so I don't have the answer for sure for that either.
So at this point, it's very important that we stress to people that if you're going to get the first shot, get the second shot.
Correct. Yep. And we're with that scheduling software, what we will be able to do as before people leave, or we'll be able to schedule them for a second one.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yep.
Isn't it amazing what technology can do when you think about it?
Yes. It has made this response very different than H1N1. There's so much more. I mean, data loggers that are able to send information to phones and alert us, and all of those pieces just weren't even, they probably were around, but the cost would have been astronomical. Mm-hmm. And now they're very affordable.
Yeah.
Very great.
Oh, you'll be busy.
Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, just wishing everyone a happy holidays and Merry Christmas, and human services, all our staff, and thank you for your support. Certainly welcome Commissioner-elect Pat. Kelly, have you met Pat before? Yeah, so I wish I could shake your hand. And then more than anything, just to recognize Will too, and congratulations to you, and we'll miss you.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yep.
Good to see everybody.
Happy holidays.
Thanks.
Merry
Happy
Christmas.
holidays.
Thank you.
Thanks, so.
Please share our wishes with your
Everybody.
with everyone.
We will do that.
All right. And we will get into administrative services. Bob?
Well, Mr. Chair, the first item is the county board minutes for December 1st.
I'll move approval. Landcamer?
People seconds.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Jesse, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Purvis?
Aye.
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder?
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg?
Aye.
Next are the bills for the 2 weeks indicated.
Purvis moves the bills.
Brenda will second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Jesse, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Purvis?
Aye.
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder?
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, at this time, I would ask Laura Elvebeck, our Human Resources Director, to come forward and present the action items.
All right.
Good morning, Laura.
Morning,
Hi,
Laura.
Laura.
Hi, Laura.
Morning.
Good morning. All right, I have 2 items for you today. So the first item is the authorization for the county board chair and county administrator to sign the agreement with the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 49, for calendar years 2021 through 2022. This collective bargaining agreement would be with our highway employees. And as noted, it is a 2-year agreement for both 2021 and 2022. Just a couple items to note of the changes made. The first is related to the healthcare savings plan and the number of hours that they are of their excess earned hours of vacation that can be converted into the healthcare savings plan is moving from 40 to 50 hours. That's consistent with some of the other plans or agreements. It does reflect a general wage adjustment for 2021 of 2.5%. This again is in alignment with all of our previously bargained units. And then for 2022, it has a 35 cents per hour general wage adjustment. This also is in alignment with other contracts that have been negotiated through 2022.
Mr. Chair, is that like 2.5%, or is that on top of the 2.5%?
For 20...
35 cents.
No, the 35 cents, that's just the straight general wage adjustment. It's not a 2.5 plus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The 2.5 is for 21 and the 35 cents is for 22.
Correct.
Thank you. I didn't.
Yep.
Yep.
I appreciate that.
Yep. And the last item to note is that there is a memorandum of agreement included for consideration that is just outlining that the county is going to do a review of the job descriptions, classifications, and look at creation of or implementation process, looking at the various job descriptions within that unit. And so that will also be taking place.
Okay. A motion?
I'll move approval. Brunder.
People second.
Then a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Mr. Chair, might I just clarify that the motion also includes the memorandum of understanding? Excuse me, just to make that clear for the minutes.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I support that.
Okay. Jesse, could you call a roll, please?
Commissioner Purvis.
Aye.
Commissioner People.
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer.
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder.
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye. That one was passed. Go ahead.
All right. The second item is requesting action on authorizing to create a healthcare savings plan for the county attorney and sheriff with a county contribution. This, if you'll remember, I was here in November presenting some proposed employee handbook language to open a healthcare savings plan for non-union employees. That particular plan was specified to those employees who had an excess of their maximum vacation accrual amounts, and then there also was the conversion of, rather than the 25% sick leave payout upon separation, it would be converted to the 25% going into the healthcare savings plan. This is a different type of plan because the individuals identified as elected officials are unable to earn vacation and sick leave, and therefore they're unable to use any vacation or sick leave. They would see no reduction in pay for any time away from work. And so this is to kind of review the healthcare savings plan. It is a plan that's authorized by the IRS. The Minnesota State Retirement System, or MSRS, is the agency that is tasked with administering the plan. The participation is very specific as far as who is able to participate and how they are able to participate. The participation is only available to union employees via a collective bargaining agreement or memorandum of understanding. For non-union employees, it's required to be included in a written personnel policy, which is what we did previously. And then all the employees who meet the criteria and the participation requirements within that language are required to participate. They do not have an option of whether or not they wish to participate in that plan. And we do have to identify specific employee groups. It's not something that you can make an agreement or an arrangement with, an individual or a one-person group. So this handbook change would permit the participation of the non-union elected department directors, specifically the county attorney and sheriff, as they are only elected department directors. And this would provide for the addition of a cash contribution as part of their compensation. The cash contribution, as laid out in the draft policy language, would provide for that contribution based on, again, meeting criteria for years of service, and then there'd be a set amount of dollars that would be placed into that healthcare savings plan, both on a yearly, annual basis, and then there also is language proposed that would provide a contribution at the time of at the time of separation. So that is what is being proposed. The language and the process being used has been initially reviewed by MSRS, and so they have provided some comments which have been reflected, but after the board would vote to approve the language and everything needs to again go back to MSRS for their final approval prior to any contributions being made to the plan.
Mr. Chair, I'm not saying I'm opposed to this, but I was under the mistaken, and it was mistaken on my part, I'm sure. I thought it started with the department heads and the proposal from the sheriff and the county attorney as of next year. I didn't realize it went back to the day they started with the county. I've got concerns about this because I don't know what the fiscal impacts are. I haven't seen those, and I think this needs to go to a work session so we can talk about this stuff. We haven't had this conversation, anyway, I haven't. Let me put it that way. I haven't had that conversation. So that's my suggestion, is that it goes to a work session. We get to talk about this and really understand what the fiscal impacts are. There's long tails on this.
Well, just to clarify, the years of service, that's specific to when the positions would be eligible for participation. So we would not be providing, a cash contribution for prior years. This would be effective going forward, but using their years of service as the criteria for eligibility.
So none of this money would be used back. It would just be starting next year. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Well, it would be effective upon the approval of MSRS, and so potentially,
depending on when that is.
Yeah, if it's in place at the time of the contribution to reflect 2020, it would reflect 2020 and then going forward. Because we do the contributions are done in January to reflect a December 31st rate.
So in other words, it would only be dollars coming up.
Correct.
I still would like to
Starting
have
in
this
21.
conversation. I think this is something that fiscally we need to understand. I need to understand better. Maybe I'm the only one. And I think that also I also need to understand the department heads also. I know that previously the board made some concessions when you were trying to get contracts, but I need to understand both the non-union and the electeds in a better way. So I would like to see it go back to a work session so we understand the fiscal impacts. It's up to the rest of the board as to what they want to see.
Well, my understanding is basically a mirror of the department head that we did in November and had discussion. And was that a work session item at one point for the
No.
department heads and the non-union, or just we do
No.
that at the
No, I
board
believe
meeting?
we just did it here at the
At a
regular
board meeting.
It
meeting.
wasn't.
Well, so in clarification of that, it is not a mirror of,
The payout would be a mirror.
the payout would be.
When it starts, I guess, would be a mirror of when it's going to start.
Yes,
There's
but
no
the actual,
backdating.
where the
Yes,
funding
yes.
comes from are two different.
And the way it's paid is different.
Correct.
I understand that, but I was more interested in the payout is going to be,
Yeah, well, and the payout is actually is also differs from what was approved for the non-union and our bargaining groups that do have this. As you can see, section 9.3, it's already been approved for non-union employees that after 20 years of service, they would receive 25% of their accumulated payout to a healthcare savings plan. Again, this is a change in that it's after 20
Right.
years, they receive an equivalency dollar amount based on their wages.
because they don't accumulate sick pay.
Correct, but they may have sick leave on the books.
Right,
From
right, yeah,
times that they
yeah.
had earned, so that's why.
You excluded in the one and added in.
Correct.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So, Mr. Chair, I might just add that the similarities are that the eligibility is the same number of years, whether it's the 13-year or the 20-year category. The payout is calculated a little differently
Right.
because of that lack of accumulated leave balances for the attorney and the sheriff.
The other thing, the other difference is that the non-union, the way that one is structured, is they're only eligible for a conversion payment once they've met not only the years of service, but they must be exceeding the maximum accrual rate of
Right.
320 hours. So an individual who would have 319 hours of vacation, for example, they would see no contribution, whereas with the elected officials, there would be a contribution.
Automatic.
Correct.
But the elected officials don't have vacation hours.
Correct. They are not permitted to
So
earn vacation
you're
or
not
to-
really talking apples to apples there because we don't, I mean,
Yeah.
those of us that are elected don't accrue vacation hours.
Correct. But the other piece of that is that we also are prohibited from reducing their pay for any leave time. So they get their salary regardless of the number of hours that they work. So, for example, I've heard the horror stories of some counties where, you have an individual who may show up and work 30 hours a week, every week, or something like that. And so they're not required to use any additional type of leave to cover those other hours. They are still provided that annual salary regardless of the hours worked.
Right. This is up to the board.
I'm ready to open it up for discussion today, and
Them
it'd be
too.
nice to get it done today so we can get it on the same calendar year as we did the other ones.
Is that a motion, Commissioner Bunting?
I will move we adopt this policy for the attorney and the sheriff.
Purvis seconds. Got a motion and a second. More discussion.
I think it needs to go to a work session, so those are my comments.
Okay?
I think we need to know financially what this means.
I would be willing to move forward on this today. I think it is try to be equitable amongst our department heads and our elected officials that run departments. I would like to make a couple amendments to it, though. One of them is a language amendment, just to make sure that the county attorney and the sheriff are able to use their other time that they've got invested in the county. And I would be supportive of a higher percentage rate in lieu of the 2.4% for discussion. So I would make them in two separate motions, or we could try to do it in one, but I think the language change is relatively simple, so if we want to try to tackle that first, we certainly could. The language, I would just like to make sure that the county attorney and the sheriff are accounted for all their service. Does that make sense?
Yes, and that
I
is.
read this and I'm not sure if that says that.
No,
so.
that is and has been our practice for as long as we've been doing the healthcare savings plan. It has been reflective of all years of service, not just those within that position.
So would it hurt to add some language to make it more clear?
I don't.
Just saying that it.
I don't believe so. Again, that, it would just be, this was proposed to be similar to the non-union and all of our bargaining unit
And maybe the
language.
non-unions could be more clarified though too, just say, because if it's not written down, is it going to get interpreted different down?
Yeah, like I said, that has been our practice for as long
Sure,
as I
I
know,
understand
and
that.
so that's what we would go by. But yeah, I mean, to have some additional language, I don't see that there would be an issue. Again, just a reminder, anything that is approved does need to go to MSRS for final approval. So,
So, Mr. Chair, maybe just to try and help with this a little bit, if we were to say, a county attorney and sheriff with 13 years of continuous service as an employee or elected official, just adding those words for clarity, would that address your concern, Commissioner Brunder?
Yes, that would take care of my concerns, and I would make an amendment, ask for an amendment to that language right now.
And I would second that. Purvis seconds.
Do you see any problem with that, Laura?
like I said, I do not, but it will be subject to that.
That's fine.
Discussion on
Yep.
the, discussion on the amendment.
I'll go back to, I think we need to see the financial impacts, both on the sheriff and the county attorney, but I also need clarification with the department heads. I assumed it was from that day going forward, and it sounds to me like we're going back. So I'm going to vote against it, just so you know that.
Any other discussion?
Well, okay, just so I'm clear, this is not going back. This is just going forward from 2020.
Correct. Yep, but it would reflect a 2020 payout or contribution to reflect the 2020 calendar year. But we would not be going back to like 2019 and
Correct.
making contributions.
We're using their years of service.
Yes.
We're not starting a whole new program today.
Correct.
We're starting.
It's adding to that program.
This would be an additional opportunity to have participation.
I keep going back to, I need to see the financials and I need to understand this better. And these comments aren't making me help it understand it better. So that's just me.
No, that's good.
You can do what you want.
My understanding is that we use the years of service only as the ability to get this.
Correct.
Such as if somebody is elected to either one of the spots and was not a county employee beforehand, they would not be able to get this.
Correct.
If the sheriff's election comes up in 2 years and somebody comes from another department and becomes sheriff, they would not be able to receive this for 13 years.
Correct. But if it were an internal, then
that's what I meant.
Yep, if we would have an individual from
somebody came from the Mankato Police Department or Lake Crystal Police Department or wherever, but they're a Blue Earth County resident and gets elected as sheriff, and they have not been an employee with Blue Earth County, they would not be able to receive this, correct?
Not until they meet that 13 years.
Correct.
13 years,
That's,
correct.
that's.
Yep, they weren't in that one.
And then, once they become that 13 years, it goes on beyond that. The 13 years don't add up for this. It's that time, once they hit that threshold of 13 years and forward, that's when this happens, correct?
Yeah.
Is that the way it is with our other directors?
With all of the collective bargaining agreements and the employee personnel policy, which would reflect the non-union,
Right.
they all have some type of language requiring a minimum number of years of service prior to being eligible to participate.
So in honesty, what we're doing is placing them in the same position as the other non-union employees have already got.
No. Again, the non-union employees, it's all based on their vacation accruals.
Right.
And they
and
have
I
to-
understand
yep.
that.
And so they have to meet a 320-hour accrual minimum. And so it is not an automatic payment, cash payment to those employees. It would only be once they meet the 13 years and they have a minimum of 320 hours. So,
Right, for that.
yeah.
right. But since the elected personnel don't have that vacation accrual, that's what I meant. I mean.
Correct. Yes, and that's why this language is
Right.
coming
I mean,
forward.
we have to make different language because it's a
Correct.
different animal.
Correct. Yeah, they don't have anything, they would not have an accrued bank
Right.
of 320
All right.
for that conversion.
Any more discussion on the amendment?
I have just one clarification, but on separation, the sheriff or county attorney would be eligible for 12 hours of regular wages
Yep.
for every year of service. That means if the sheriff started out as a deputy sheriff in 1979 and then leaves employment in 2022, then he would be eligible for starting in 1979.
That is how we would use, it's what we would use for the calculation purposes, yes. It'd be 12 hours for every year of service, and again, not specified to just elected.
And I think I need to see the fiscal stuff, and I need to understand this better. So that's where and I'm not saying I'm opposed to this. I'm just saying this is a work session issue. It's not one that we do on the fly at a board member. I didn't expect to see this. I was shocked when I saw it in my board packet. I had no idea this was coming forward, and I have a problem with that. This is a work session issue, from my perspective.
Any more discussion on the amendment?
I just have one comment, speaking from a 41-year employee of Blue Earth County. I did not receive any of this. That's been kind of a pet peeve of mine, and I think this is a good step moving forward for our elected officials and our non-union employees.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Any more discussion on the amendment? Jesse, roll on the amendment.
Commissioner Purvis?
Aye.
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
No.
Commissioner Brunder?
Aye.
Commissioner Stuenberg?
Yes. Discussion on the motion.
I would actually like to discuss the percentage at this point. The 2.4% is equivalent to approximately 50 hours from my understanding. And I would propose a larger number than that, and some of my reasoning for that is an elected official does have to be reelected every year. They aren't a department head, not that a department head has a guarantee in their job at any given time. But they also are not eligible for the vacation payout at the end of their career, from my understanding. So if I'm a 20-year veteran here at Blue Earth County, chances are I'm going to accumulate a pretty good chunk of vacation pay, because we get 5.5 weeks after a certain amount of time. That's a lot of vacation pay. So they wouldn't be eligible for that 300 hours upon their retirement or exiting employment at Blue Earth County. So that's a little bit of a disparity. And we all talk about disparities and fairness, and this is a very difficult decision for the board on how we try to treat our employees fair. But those are some of my reasons why I'd like to see that number be increased in my research and trying to work on this and muddle through it. So I would care to hear some thoughts from the rest of the board before I make a motion, or someone else can make a motion on a different number.
I guess I share your concern and understand where you're coming from, and I would support that we have a higher percentage.
No, I
Mr.
think,
Chair, and I'll go back to, I need to see the financials on this. I need to understand this stuff, and I think it's a work session not, but those are my comments.
Okay, would that be another amendment?
I was just gonna get discussion first, but I would make someone can make an amendment, or I will.
No, I can move, I'll move, I'll move the amendment with
Okay,
that change.
exactly what does the
Yeah.
amendment say?
It would be.
To raise it from what to what?
2.5 to, that goes to 5?
I would support 5.
5%?
I would second, if your amendment is to
To
go from
5%.
2.4 to 5% against the staff recommendation, I would support that. I would second that.
Okay, we have an amendment to raise it from 2.5 to 5%. Motion and a second. We need some discussion on that.
I think we kind of had our
I think we
discussion.
had it.
I'm just following the rules here. Following the rules.
Very good, Mr. Chair.
I tried to articulate what my thoughts were, and let someone else
I
have something
appreciate
else
that,
to offer.
and I do understand where everybody's coming from. I absolutely do. Jesse, call a roll on the second amendment.
Commissioner Purvis?
Aye.
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
No.
Commissioner Brunder?
Aye.
Commissioner Stuenberg?
Yes. Now, we're back to the main motion. Is there any further discussion? And Jesse, could you be able to read off what the motion says, please? Is there a possibility to do that?
I can articulate it if you
I
want
was
me
gonna
to.
say, otherwise, if you'd like, I can.
Could you do that,
I
Laura?
can read the language as my understanding of it being.
I would
reflecting the
appreciate
amendments.
that. Thank you.
So it'd be, the change would be to section 12.8 of our employee handbook, where it would state that a county attorney or sheriff with 13 years of continuous service as an employee or elected official shall have the equivalent of 5% of the official's annual salary contributed to the county attorney and sheriff's healthcare savings plan by the county. The lump sum payment shall be deposited in the official's healthcare savings plan account in January of the following year based on the rate of pay on December 31st.
Is
That's
that
my
how everybody
understanding.
understands
That's my
it?
understanding of the
Yep.
motion.
That's what
mine
just
is.
passed.
That's what mine is.
No,
so.
well, any
We haven't
further
voted on the motion
discussion?
yet.
Jesse, call the roll.
Commissioner Purvis?
Aye.
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
No.
Commissioner Brunder?
Yes.
Chair Stuenberg?
Yes. Oh, we got through that one.
Yep. All right. I think that is
Rest
all
informational.
that is all I have, so.
Thank you, Laura.
Yep.
Thanks, Laura.
Thanks, Laura.
Merry Christmas.
Yes.
Merry
same to you.
Christmas.
Yeah,
Yep, Merry Christmas.
we put you through something there, Laura.
Oh, yeah, yes, so, gotta keep me on my toes every once in a while.
And then, Bob, you got some informational stuff for us?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have filled 3 positions, starting with the taxpayer services specialist position. Actually, 2 of those, one full-time and one a part-time temporary. And then we filled a care coordinator in our public health unit. We also had a promotion of our human resource technician to a human resource coordinator, so we've initiated recruitment to refill that technician position. And then we had a resignation of a dispatcher, so we are seeking recruitment to fill that position. We also had a position that was held under our flexible hiring freeze that we're now releasing, and that's the community-based coordinator through our Yellow Line project. And lastly, we had a resignation of an investigator in the sheriff's department, and we'll then recruit to refill that investigator position.
Okay.
Happy to answer any questions the board might have on that.
Mr. Chair, not a question, just a comment. I see B shows that we're getting some additional diversity, and I think that's a really positive thing. So just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, we've been trying to do some additional recruiting to bring in additional diversity into the organization, and so we are pleased to see that happening.
That's always a good thing.
Yep.
Always a good thing.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. The resignation of the investigator, is he resigning from that position and going back to deputy, or is he resigning from the department?
He's resigning from the department under health issues, duty-related.
Sure, okay.
So,
Okay. All right.
all right.
So then we go into our levy.
Yes, well, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 18 in your packet is a resolution as required by Minnesota Statute 275.07, certifying the 2021 property tax levy. Blue Earth County staff began working on the budget in April of this year, as you're aware. Meetings with the department heads were held in June. Work sessions with all of you occurred throughout the summer and into fall. These discussions have resulted in a recommendation of a levy of $39,947,187. This levy represents an increase of 2.5% over the property taxes that were assessed in 2020. I recommend the 2021 property tax levy of $39,947,187 be certified to the Blue Earth County Finance Director.
Langhammer moves the levy as proposed.
Brundle will second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members, I'd like to, I think in due of the circumstances and the COVID and everything else happening, I'd like to move that the levy increase be from 2.5% to lower to 1.5% for the year. I think it's, like I say, there's hard times out there, and we can do a lot of things. We can do things with the CARES Act, whatever money we get, and it sounds like the state's going to come through, but with some. But I think we should look at what we can do further with our tax burden on our taxpayers in the county. So I move the change to 1.5%.
We have an amendment to the motion to lower it from 2.5 to 1.5.
Brundle will second.
Okay, we got a second. Discussion, please.
Mr. Chair, the CARES Act money is gone. And I don't know if we're ever going to get more CARES Act money.
I misspoke. I think the state is looking at some, but the feds, maybe not, but.
And we're looking at 2.5% for employees. We've seen increases in detox in multiple ways, in transportation in multiple ways. We just passed an increase for the sheriff and the county attorney. And those are just things we've done in the last couple weeks. I agree it's tough times for some people out there, and I'm hoping that in the future we're going to be able to invest in some of our businesses that are going through tough times. But if we're actually into our reserve right now, and I'm assuming that we're probably going to have to spend more money on public health coming up and other things. So I guess I support the levy as proposed. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? Yes.
I just have a question. Bob, have you calculated the difference between 2.5 and 1.5?
It's just under $400,000 difference, about 390.
So $400,000 less that we'd be receiving?
Yeah, just about.
Okay.
And just to add to that, we've also had court cases where at our last board meeting, over $500,000 had to be refunded to the mall. And there are other court cases too. So money that we had expected to get in this current budget, we won't be receiving. Those are just some of the issues that I see. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, and I think, I understand those, but I'm looking at, I have people saying that, they're having a tough time with the taxes and property taxes, and I think it's really a small gesture. I think there's other avenues that we'll probably get a little bit more money, you know, how much. And I think with what you said, there's some truth to that, but I think we have ample reserves, and I think that this is a time that's so different than any and that I can recall, that we're still having an increase, just lowering it a little bit, just as a gesture in a sense for those that I think are affected by a number of things, including COVID. So I could stand by the
That
amendment.
comment, I've spoken to some of the residential owners in some of these small communities, and some of them have recognized a 30% increase in their taxes, in their proposed taxes, not because of the county, but because of their referendums, major projects in the small communities and stuff like that. So I guess it's a small gesture in my mind.
Yeah, I would agree with them comments also, and we have in the past several years have budgeted with using some of the reserves, and I don't think it's been as negative as we had anticipated in most of those years.
Yeah.
I know Bob and I have had discussions about in the last 6 or 8 years when we have been digging into reserves, what the total number should have been if we would have used all the reserves according to the budget, and the number is much smaller. So I do acknowledge we are using reserves. I think the reserves are for this very situation. We have a healthy fund balance. We have an operation that is very well managed by the upper management team we have here. And I am confident that we can get through this without any issue. And I only say that because of the past experience we've had with using deficit budgeting and planning on using reserves. And I'm confident we can get through this one. Again, I do though have one question, I guess. One statement. I would like to see this used out of reserves. I don't want to have the department heads try to cut another 400 grand from their departments. I just use reserves. And my other question, Bob, is how did we do, and you might not have this number today, but I think you've mentioned it to me in the past, how did we do on tax collection? Because that was one of my biggest concerns with Commissioner Landcamer about, are we going to get our fall tax collected? I mean, and I don't think I ever got a final number. Do you have that, or a sense of where we ended up? Because it was a huge concern that we ain't going to get all our tax money this year.
Yeah.
I think when we look at the financial status report in a moment, you'll see that we're in the 98 to 99% range of collections, with December still to go. So there might be a few taxes that still trickle in, but slightly less than our target, but certainly not quite as bad as we might have anticipated at back in March, when we were concerned about where things were going to go.
Bob, comparative to other years, how does that compare?
Similar. We tend to run, maybe 1 or 2% either above or below, depending on tax court settlements, collection rates. Sometimes we do go over our target by just a little bit, and so it really kind of floats somewhat with the economy, but also with some of those larger tax court settlements.
And I guess that's what I'm saying, is we've had tax court settlements that are significant, and those dollars aren't going to be in our next budget. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
I understand both sides.
We all do.
But I certainly do understand the business side of this. I heard a lot of business owners talk to me about how the taxes are killing them. I don't think this is going to make a huge difference with them, but I think is like Commissioner Pifo said, it's more that they know that the county board understands that there's issues out there and that we care, and I will support lowering this down. Any other discussion? Jesse, could you call the roll on the amendment, please?
Commissioner Purvis.
Aye.
Commissioner People.
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer.
No.
Commissioner Brunder.
Yes.
Chair Stuenberg.
Yes. Any more discussion on the main amendment? Main motion, sorry,
The main motion's changed.
with the amendment. With the amendment. Jesse, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Purvis.
Aye.
Commissioner People.
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer.
No.
Commissioner Brunder.
Yes.
Commissioner Stuenberg.
Yes. All right. Now, with all that, it might change our budget a little bit, Bob.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have number 19 in the packet is the 2021 proposed budget. Obviously, with the change in the levy, that does impact this. And so the total budget will remain at $113,767,251 based on Commissioner Brunder's comments that any change in the levy would basically flow down to that line that says use of / provided to fund balance. So that number will change to $2,624,460 to adjust things. And then the individual funds will also change as a result of that. But we can get this resolution modified, but just know that the total amount of the budget remains unchanged, and we'll just use more from reserves to balance that out.
All right. We need a motion on the budget.
Brunder will move the budget.
People will second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just a comment. Well, I disagree with that. I certainly know that I have to vote for a budget.
Better than no.
Well said.
That's a great discussion. Any more discussion? I just appreciate the work that the staff, finance does, keeping the county running as well as it does. Without what you've done this year and then in the past years, we wouldn't be able to do this. We wouldn't have a reserve that we could do this kind of stuff with, and possibly help our residents. So I really appreciate the work that you've done. Jesse, call a roll, please.
Commissioner Purvis.
Aye.
Commissioner People.
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer.
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder.
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye. All right.
All right, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 20 in your packet is the salary adjustments. Our practice has generally been to approve general wage adjustments for all non-union employees, supervisors, department heads, and elected officials that are the same as have been negotiated with their labor unions. For 2021, this is a 2.5% general wage adjustment, and then we also are asking you to set the county commissioner's salary for 2021 at $39,655.
Purvis moves the adjustment.
Landcamer seconds.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Jesse, call a roll, please.
Commissioner Purvis.
Aye.
Commissioner People.
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer.
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder.
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye.
Item number 21 in your packet is the 2021 per diem rate. Each year, the county board is asked to establish a per diem rate for the various boards and commissions that you all are eligible for. Our county per diems have been at the same rate for many, many years. I did some research, and the best I could come up with was the last time they were changed was back in the mid-1990s. I couldn't narrow in on the exact date, but that's the best I can do in terms of telling you when they last changed. And so staff is recommending the board consider modifying those per diems from a 75 full-day rate and a $50 half-day rate to a $100 per full-day maximum with a $60 rate for a half-day, basically.
I'll bring it to the board.
Purvis moves the adjustment in the per diem rates.
People second.
Got a motion and a second? Any discussion?
We've been talking about raising this for 18 years since I've been on the county board, and I've finally decided that I could support something different. So I will support this today.
Well, it was in the mid-1990s. Colleen, were you on?
I was here.
When they changed that?
Well, that's when
remember
we
that?
implemented it, yeah.
Oh, you implemented it?
Yeah.
Ah,
Okay.
No, I'm kind of like Kip. I thought, looking at the number of years, I guess it's time.
Yeah, it hasn't been changed. And I can't remember what year in the 90s also, but I know that that's the last
So-
time it's been looked at.
And this is not a large change, you know, when you consider 25 years of the same rate. So, yeah, I know I've discussed this with other commissioners over the years, and I appreciate that they're taking action for years to come. Any more discussion? Jesse, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Purvis.
Aye.
Commissioner People.
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer.
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder.
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 22 in your packet are tobacco licenses for 2021. All the applicants have completed the required paperwork and submitted the license fee, and so staff are recommending approval of these licenses.
Landcamer moves approval?
People second it.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Jesse, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Purvis.
Aye.
Commissioner People.
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer.
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder.
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye.
Item number 23 in the packet then is Electronic Funds Transfer Authority, Minnesota Statute 471.38 requires that the governing body shall annually delegate the authority to make electronic funds transfers. Historically, the board has been comfortable delegating that and authorizing the finance director and assistant finance director to make those transfers, and so we're asking for approval again for 2021.
Landcamer moves approval?
Brunder will second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Jesse, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Purvis.
Aye.
Commissioner People.
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer.
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder.
Yes.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye.
The last item, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, is the financial status report for November 30th. You'll see that our total revenues at the end of November were $100,765,447 compared to expenses of $92,452,803. We do have 1 month remaining in our fiscal year, and so those numbers will change. I do at this point sort of anticipate that we will not have to use fund balance, partly because of the steps that the board implemented earlier this year when COVID hit, as well as some of the CARES reimbursements that we've received. And so we're going to finish out the year, I think, a little better than anticipated as a result. Clearly, we didn't accomplish the same amount of things, though, with COVID, so that would be the downside. To the earlier question of the, what our tax collections look like, you'll see the third line down under the revenues and other sources, the local tax levy at this point is 98.9% of our anticipated budget. So whatever tax collections are received in December will add to that number. In terms of the Ponderosa landfill, you'll see that our expenses there are exceeding our revenue by a couple $100,000. Again, we had considerable land improvements and machinery costs this year. It is possible that that could equalize itself in terms of the revenues and expenses after the December report, but we may end up in a small deficit by the looks of things in the Ponderosa, which is not unusual when we're making those kinds of infrastructure or capital investments. In terms of the cash and investment balances on the second page, you'll see kind of our available funds are pretty much on track with that 6-month operating needs target that we have, and that our total county fund sits at just under $119 million. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board might have at this point.
No
I don't
questions.
have any questions. All right, good report.
That's all for administrative items, Mr. Chair.
All right. Well, then we will go to commissioner reports. And Commissioner People, you got a report? I noticed you were hard at work there. I thought
I've had it here.
I know.
This before. Let's see, December 1st, we had the work session, and the second department heads, and then Friday on the 4th of December, I had my CEMRIC's, our joint powers, a Zoom meeting. No, that wasn't Zoom, that was another, I'm forgetting. Not quite as, it was kind of a Skype type thing. It was a little different, yeah. I didn't think it worked as well, but
I call them all Zoom, so it
yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
matter.
Yeah, I do too now. But anyway, that was our last the meeting. We have only a couple in a year. Then December 7th, we had our AMC annual meeting. That was actually quite good. That was actually the motivational speaker, which he was good, and he's gonna, I guess, come back for. Was it next coming year or whatever?
Yeah. His brother is a county commissioner.
Yeah, he's a county commissioner, yeah.
Chuck.
Yep, Chuck, yeah.
Beltrami?
Yeah, it was up there, yeah.
He was on the board with me for Magic.
Yeah,
Oh,
okay.
okay.
So I
Yeah.
got to know Chuck pretty well.
Yeah, I do him, so that was good. Then we had a RETA advisory meeting on the 9th of December. They got into different avenues of RETA with promotions or with the development, economic development. A lot of city conversation what cities were doing, because they make up the big bulk of RETA, their economic development. MICA board meeting is on the 9th, and they gave kind of a rundown on the budget and what kind of aid we're going to get from, or if what the state's doing, which that was kind of updated with Senator Friends yesterday or something, But anyway, then RCF was on Thursday. And that was for small business. We discussed some things, and then had All Seasons Arena that I chaired on that Friday. Moving forward, we did have the new city manager there for Mankato was there, at least on Zoom, and she got a little taste of what ASA, and of course that will be moving into where all the employees will be, they will be then for sure by the, all taking place in the early part of next year, that all the 3 employees with ASA will be Mankato employees. Yep, so, and I think it's going to work out really well, because it does fit the mission, I think, of the city even a little better to be working with having employees through with All Seasons Arena.
It's going to be good for those employees too to be working under the city of Mankato.
At least so far they seem to, are very happy about it. Yep.
That's good.
That concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Lancaster.
Okay. On the first, we had a work session, and then I was part of a Zoom on the equity indicators. This is our equity and inclusion group that is looking at putting together a survey to go out to see, to get a feel for the community, knowing full well we'll also are planning on doing face-to-face. The question is when it's safe. And then later that day, I had a NACO board training as to our board meeting, and they were using new technology again, so they were trying to train us on how to do that. And that evening, we had the public hearing for the budget and the levy. On the 2nd, we had a department head meeting, and then that afternoon, I had a Minnesota Transportation Alliance meeting. The governor's staff was on to talk about the governor's feelings on transportation. And climate is going to be something that he's very interested in. And so when we're applying for dollars, we should make sure to insert that some way. The 3rd, Vance and I were both on a Zoom call for the policing that a group has put together. Vance had some good comments to make, and I was primarily there to listen. On the 7th, AMC board meeting that morning. The Ledge Conference will be virtual in February. And I guess we'll go from there as to how we do that. Also, the new commissioner school will be held in June, I think, or July. I can't remember which one. But there will be Zoomers previous to that. So it's a whole new world out here for all of us. And then we had the annual meeting that afternoon, and I agree it was well done. I was surprised we didn't have more glitches. And then later that day, I had the legislative update from NACO as to where the feds were on the bill. Of course, it changes frequently. On the 9th, I had Southwest Minnesota Housing Partnership talking about what we plan on doing the next year, how COVID has interacted, and other opportunities there are. On the 10th, we had InterGov talked about the roundabout on County Road 12. And the new city manager and Bob and Ryan and the city engineer.
Paul Vogel?
No. Paul Vogel was on, but Paul might be a part of it, but I think the engineers will be a part of it, talking about how we share that expense. That'll come back to us. On the 10th, that's the 10th, that afternoon, NACO had Luck Rack. Good conversations. First it was split into Rack and Luck, and then in the later after that, we all came together. The 11th, I had the State Board of Health with Commissioner Malcolm, who then talked about how they're really not getting the money they need, let alone funneling it down. So with COVID, it's going to be a challenge, and I think we're probably going to be spending more money than we thought we would out of our property tax levy. On the 14th, the Finance and Intergovernment. Let me go back to Commissioner Malcolm for a minute. She did say, you know, the different levels of people who are going to get the inoculation. She said it changes every time they talk to the feds. So what's said right now might change tomorrow. So just a point. We also said goodbye to Deb Burns, who's been with the board with MDH for 35 years or something. She's always been just great. Harlan Madsen was our chair and now is, you know, not running again. So so we recognize some of the people that are not going to be there, and thank the commissioner for all her work and the commitment that MDH has had. Okay, back to the NACO Finance and Intergovernmental Affairs. We talked about our priorities for next year, and we got a report on jobs, and many people have lost their jobs, as we know, and there's concern what's going to happen in the future. And also the legislative update where they determined, the federal Congress has determined they're going to split out state and local funding. It's not going to be part of the bill they think they've got consensus on. They're not totally there yet. State and local funding, they're going to take that out, and they might take it up next year. So at this point, it appears there will be no state and local money coming from the federal government at this point. We all heard from Senator Friends who talked about what the state is doing, and we really appreciate that. I think the businesses it's a great place to put some money. So that's my report, sir.
All right. Will. See, I'm just kind of going back and forth.
He always starts with Mark, though.
Yeah.
Not always. I've started with.
No, that's great.
We have.
Well, of course, the work session on the 1st was mentioned, and the budget hearing also, the department heads on the 2nd. On the 7th, I had a detox personnel committee meeting in the morning, and of course, the AMC annual meeting in the afternoon. I thought, too, that it just went very well. As many people that were on there, I was just amazed at how well it worked. And on the 8th, I had a detox staff meeting. On the 10th, Kip and I were at the SWCD meeting, good meeting there. On the 11th, I had a detox personnel meeting again. And on the 14th, I had a detox board meeting. That's my report.
Mr. Chair, can I add one more thing?
Oh, sure.
For the NACO Legislative Conference is going to be virtual. They're hoping WIR and the annual conference will be in person, but they don't know. So just for your calendars.
Thank you. Thank you. Was that it? Well,
that's all I got.
That's your last one of the.
It's the last time you're going to hear from me.
We're going to miss you, Will.
Until we put that roundabout over by.
Yeah, roundabout.
You'll be hearing from
We're
us.
just going to go down to Vernon Center. I think that's where we need to go.
Laura asked me what my best accomplishment was my years on the board, and I said, kept District 4 roundabout free.
And so if a roundabout goes into District 4, he will blame Kevin.
Well, of course. Commissioner Brunder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. After the last board meeting, we had our work session, which was already talked about. Had our planning and zoning meeting virtual, which we already all heard. Was on a virtual meeting with the statewide ECB board. I'm the legislative chair, so I had to run that meeting. And we're just working on several different things to try to get spooled up for the legislators this year. Some 911 CPR, telecommunications, parameters, I guess you would call them, and training and how to get that out. And then some stuff to try to get some more money to the PSAPs for the dispatch areas. And then right after that, I had my statewide emergency communication board. They don't normally fall on the same day, but because of scheduling for the holidays, it worked out that way. I got reports from everybody there. They're all working diligently, trying to get their projects done for the year and get spooled up for the state legislator meeting also. Mark talked a little bit about MICA. We did finalize our platform with the several items we have. So we have all of our platforms ready to go, and we will be working on them throughout the next January and February and into the session. Colleen talked about InterGov. I thought that meeting went pretty well. The only thing I would like to say is that Paul Vogel gave his presentation. He kind of gave a nice history to bring the administrator from Mankato up to date. He did a nice job with that. They talked about some different funding sources, which I was impressed with, because it looks like between some TIF and some other grants they have, I'm not going to break them down for you, but it comes to just short of $1 million. And Colleen or Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was just short of $1 million. The whole project was like about a $1.4 million project. We did talk cost share. Colleen politely reminded them that Pat said he would pay for it. That didn't get much traction. We
Like
did-
none.
But we did visit, so they are talking cost participation. I tried to pin Vogel down a little bit and get him to commit to, we would be interested in maybe cost sharing anything over $1 million. But they kept circling around and I didn't get that commitment from them. I didn't think I did. So that's my feelings. If we are gonna fund this roundabout, I think we should stick to that. They're using the TIF and they're using some grant money they got, so I think we should just definitely talk about that, anything over $1 million. If the bid comes in at 1.2 million, better for us. If it comes in at 1.6 million, our cost share would be a little higher. I was okay with our staff working out the cost share, who's gonna pay what, because I don't want to get in that negotiations. And Ryan and the Mankato engineer, we're gonna discuss that. But I'm going to stick to that. You know, they have $1 million between their TIF and their grant money. I think they should use that first, and then we split the rest. We did not commit to using any of our budgetary money from Ryan's budget in the next 2 to 3 years. I think we summarized, said that wasn't in our best interest because we didn't have anything funded, but I did say that we maybe could talk about some of the TIF that would be getting off that properties that we're developing out there. So that's kind of where we're at with that. It is just an ongoing process, but I appreciated Clean mentioning that Pat said he was going to pay for this.
Yeah.
They didn't remember that?
They didn't remember that. So.
They did. Yeah.
Actually, Paul's presentation was great. I would
He
have
did a
liked
good
to have
job.
seen it earlier, but there was a little revisionist history in there too.
Obviously, they were forgetting
So-
some things.
Yeah.
But it was a good meeting. And again, that's just, it took a little more time to explain that, but that is going to be a board decision when come time to pull the trigger on it because it is at Intergov now. So Mark and I had RCEF. Things are going pretty well there. They're getting a lot of things done. Mark and I have been talking about changing our model of how we're doing business with them. So we're been talking with that group on that, and we'll keep you posted on that. We'll be making talking about that more in the future and make some decisions on that. SWCD, Will was already mentioned that. They got a lot of things going on. It's a great group. They always get a good turnout. They were very appreciative of Will's service as a board member and as a county employee for Blue Earth County. That was acknowledged also. So the chairwoman gave a nice thank you to Will, and she did a good job. He's very much appreciated there, and they were very happy to hear that we appointed Kevin as the next person to sit on that committee. So I had my MCIT annual meeting last Friday, which I was on the ballot to try to win a board seat, and I unfortunately did not get it. Jack
Darn.
Swanson from up north, past president of the AMC, and I seen his name on the ballot with mine. I knew I had a tough challenge. 86 people. It was 42 to 18 or something, so I didn't do that well. But he'll do a great job on there.
Jack's a great guy.
Yeah, MCIT is doing really well. Robin gave a good report. They're very strong financially. The biggest concern of all of the concerns that we have in insurance, the trash burning facilities owned by counties apparently are
Like
getting-
Hennepin.
Yeah, are getting some.
Is it
They're
Ramsey
having some
too?
real challenges finding the reinsurance for them. So
We take Ramsey's.
they're doing some stuff to try to get that done, but there was some discussion about that. And Felix ran the meeting. He did a great job trying to get all the information passed on to everybody, and it was a virtual meeting. Had all kinds of technology sitting at my desk. I had a new computer, I had my iPad, I had my phone, but I couldn't get through any of them, so I had to call on my 35-year-old telephone laying on the desk at the shop. So, but I was able to listen to all the conversation and sit in on the meeting. And then Monday, I had my MRCI meeting. We are trying to get things spooled up. The model is going to look totally different than what it did. We did get into a little discussion about what it's going to look like, but it's kind of complicated, so I am going to ask Brian or Tammy if they would just like to come to a work session sometime and give us a 15 or 20-minute overview of what their plan is. It looks like a good model that we'll be moving forward with, and I think it'll be a really good asset to this community, and they're excited about getting it going again. So I will bring them in to visit with us a little bit about that. And then last night I was on a conference call with the Child Development Committee with MVAC. That was 6 o'clock until 8 o'clock or so, and they are just kind of moving through with all the COVID stuff and dealing with the kids and trying to keep the Head Start program going. So that brings me to today, Mr. Chair.
All right. Well, I have a lot of the same stuff everybody else had. On the first, we had our work session, and then I had a NACO membership committee meeting after that, and then, of course, our county budget meeting that evening. We had our department head meeting on the 2nd, and that's right, we did have another meeting together after that, didn't we?
The policing.
That was on Thursday, policing meeting. We had on the 3rd, I had our South Central Towards Zero Death Committee meeting. I had my library board meeting, and then the policing Zoom meeting that me and Colleen were on. Interesting conversations. Sometimes it's, obviously my background in law enforcement gives me a different perspective than some of the others, and it's always interesting, but you always treat people with respect, and no matter what their feelings are, and I think that comes across on those meetings. Monday the 7th, we had the AMC Board of Directors meeting. Then we had that afternoon, we had our AMC annual meeting. And I believe what they say, that we had over 300 people on that annual meeting.
Yeah.
It was a very large Zoom meeting, and it went over. I can't say it went without a hitch, but I tell you what, it went really well.
I think it went better than most of the meetings I'm on.
I was impressed with
We didn't vote a lot. I mean, it was
AMC
kind of-
and how they handled that. I think, and how they divided things out and how they did. I mean, it was great. On the 8th, I had a transportation committee meeting for NACO. On the 10th, of course, we had our Luck Rack virtual summit meeting. That went well.
Yep.
That evening, I had a 169 executive board meeting, again on Zoom. Everything's on Zoom, it seems like. And that leads us up to this morning. So that's it. I do want to spend this time to really thank Will. I tell you, I'm going to absolutely miss you. Me and Will have worked together for over 40 years.
Yep.
Poor Will.
I say Will kind of.
And I feel sorry for him for that. But Will's been a mentor to me for years, not only here as a board member, but previously when I was a Lake Crystal police officer to when I was a North Mankato police officer in Mankato. And Will was always on the sheriff's department, and he was always willing to sit down and talk and discuss things. Will, I know I'm not going to quit seeing you because we're friends, or family friends,
absolutely.
but we're going to certainly miss you. And in retrospect, Kevin, we are going to really welcome you on the board. Thank you for much. We all know your background. We know your farming background, your work with Farmers Union, and
Farm Bureau.
Farm Bureau.
That must be a swear word.
Calm down, Kevin. Calm
Farm
down.
Bureau.
I'll take care of it.
We really appreciate you coming on and having to work with us four people. But thank you very much, and I think we're done with the meeting. Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
that.
We're going to miss you, Will.
I just want to say it's been an honor. It has just been an honor to serve on the county board, and I've enjoyed my time here. I have truly enjoyed the people I worked with here at the county board, plus all the people I've met around the state and the nation and stuff. Great experience. So I'll be watching.
Well, thank
Good
you
luck,
very
Kevin.
much.
I say enjoy your next adventure.
And enjoy your. I know you failed retirement one time. Let's make sure you get it going good this time. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, Paul. It doesn't sound much like retirement. Paul has made a list already.
Dave Frederickson, the former Commissioner of Agriculture in Minnesota, when he retired, he was the president of, help me, Farmers Union, yeah. And he retired, and they moved back to Minnesota. And so after he'd been home for a couple of weeks, his wife, Kay, looked at him and said, you know, I love you dearly. I married you for better for or worse, richer for poor, but but lunch was not part of this. Get a job. He then went to work for Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you very much. And I think we're done. We actually are done this time.
I do have one fond memory of when I was still a county